He was driving by a haunted road when this happened. A truck driver by the name Pedro explains that many of his co-workers have reported seeing a ghostly figure standing on the side of the road in Louisiana. Mousy explains she was playing with her son one day when something inside their bedroom caught his attention.
Cheese! Cheese!
You walk into your kitchen one day to find it in total disarray. You decide to start filming, documenting it for evidence, when out of the corner of your eye, you spot a hellish face peeking out at you from the top of a doorway. These are demons that realized they were caught on camera. Take a look at this nightmarish monstrosity. Gotta say, guy in a costume or not, I do not like this, and I would not like running into it in the dark, in the day, inside, outside, just no thank you all around. This video was posted to TikTok by Fastby Tess Horror with a description reading, Muslim traveler finds himself face to face with a monstrous creature lurking in the shadows. We don't have a lot of context for this footage, just that the guy behind the camera supposedly came across this gargoyle looking thing leering down at him from a ledge, and the man, completely shaken and petrified, started praying, and you can hear the terror in his voice as he does so. I find this thing deeply unsettling. This is what I kind of picture a genuine demonic creature looking like, although a lot of commenters say it looks like Frank from Donnie Darko, which, I mean, you know what, hey, that doesn't take anything away from it, still makes this creepy as hell. A man named Cody had started noticing odd things going on in his house one day, so he pulled out his phone and started recording. He'd noticed the light in the fridge and bathroom flickering. He also heard water running, so he peeked around the corner of the bathroom and, to his complete shock and confusion, found that the bathroom sink was on. And when a door behind him suddenly shut on its own, he really got freaked out and decided to step outside. He rang up his girlfriend, who urged him to just stay out of the house. Either there was an intruder or something else was going on, but none of it could be good. But Cody went back in to keep filming anyway, and suddenly found the place was a complete mess. Chairs had been knocked over, cupboards were open, so he immediately changed his mind and rightfully left the house again. And 2 hours later, he went back in, took a look in every single room to see if there's anyone there. He didn't find anything. That is, until he went back and looked at the footage that he'd taken later on. While he'd been filming his kitchen after having come back into the house that first time, he'd briefly panned across to his daughter's doorway. But while watching the footage back, he noticed something in the top right-hand corner, so he paused and zoomed in, revealing this. A ghostly looking face peering out from above the doorway. This chilled him to the bone, and it's easy to see why. There are some very dubious ghost videos and pictures out there. Blurry, often hard to make out, but this looks legitimately terrifying. It's clearly a face, but it does not look human. Speaking of creepy as hell, be glad you don't live in the same building as this next guy. In this short clip, we see a man filming a staircase, lit up by the light from his phone. On the stairs is a man rushing up to the camera. Clearly his intentions aren't good. Either he's just trying to freak out our cameraman, or he's got something worse in mind. Luckily, the cameraman manages to shut the door before the crazed guy manages to get too close, but then, for whatever reason, he decides to open the door back up again to see if the dude's still there, I guess, and it doesn't look like it at first. You know, all we see is the dark, empty stairwell, but in true horror movie fashion, just as the camera peeks around the corner, we get this. It's immediately clear that there is something very wrong with this guy's eyes. Was this dude on something? Is the video just a hoax? Or was this man possessed by a demon or a djinn. Talk about a demon realizing they're being filmed. This thing is right up close, staring directly into this person's car. Take a look. Would you just sit there continuing to film this, or would you be tearing out of there? I know what camp I'm in. I'd be gone. Those are not the eyes of someone who needs directions or wants to be friendly in any way. Those are the eyes of someone whose mouth is about to stretch 3 times its normal size and devour your face in a single chomp. She's almost still as a statue, completely unblinking, which is really what makes the whole thing so downright chilling. But take note of her eyes, just ever so slightly shifting to the person behind the camera. It's such a slight little movement, but just sends shivers up your spine. The fact that she looks so dead-eyed, just staring off into the distance, and then slowly switches to look right down the barrel of the camera, right at us as the viewers. It's just hard not to avert your eyes a little bit. So you wake up one morning to find holes in your garage door. You check your security camera to see what's going on, and while skimming through the footage, you see this. Now, I can't find the source of the original video here, so if any of you can, please let me know down below. But my god, whatever the hell this thing is, it doesn't appear to be human. I think if I saw holes in a wooden door in my backyard, I might think it was a raccoon, maybe a large rat. But Gollum? I think that's the last thing I'd be expecting or wanting to see. The pig demon. Take a listen to this before I give you all the backstory. Can you make that out? Sounds a lot like someone saying, "I have the body of a pig," which wouldn't be so freaky if anyone in the room had said that they remembered hearing it or that they'd said it themselves. But nobody did. It wasn't until they looked over the footage later that this audio came up. This video was uploaded to YouTube by Devin Raymond, who wrote in the description that the recording was an EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon, picked up in a secret location during his tenure as a special guest and resident expert with a group that he can't disclose. Now, the EVP on its own is pretty disconcerting, but check out what they caught on camera later on. While filming into a dark crevice, they picked up this still image right here. Definitely would have been disturbing in person, or even going back and looking at the footage you'd taken earlier, knowing you were right there with whatever this thing was. But I like the fact that this demonic spirit or ghost or whatever it may have been would just announce to everyone, "I have the body of a pig." You look at it, it's like, I guess, yeah, you do look a little piggish. This next video comes to us from Reddit user Kipper2. Take a look. Now, pretty much everyone in the comments, including me, is saying this is a reflection on the window coming from inside the house. And while you could say it's just someone standing behind the camera person, take a closer look at the reflection. That looks like the demon face that shows up at the end of Skinamarink. Just what the hell is that? It looks almost like 2 faces kind of attached together. Kipper2 also gave some context in the description, writing, "A family member of mine shared this live photo she took of a deer in her and her husband's front yard. The two of them lived alone in this old southern farmhouse, previously owned by an older gentleman who had passed away in the home. She'd complained a few times about hearing walking in the attic. It wasn't long after this photo that they decided to move out. And yeah, best not to take your chances and just get out of there." See what happens when you mess with Ouija boards? Take a look at this. This video was posted to YouTube by Ouija Warning, a very apt name for a channel with a video like this. In the 2 or so minute clip, we watch as a group of girls and dudes mess with a Ouija board. One woman in the video, the one who ends up freaking out at the end, is laughing and joking the whole time as the planchette begins spelling out Zozo. She then asks if the spirit's name is Zozo, and when the planchette moves to yes, she begins to laugh again. Only this time, her laughter becomes less joyful and more hysterical, in a pained, panicked sort of way. Now, I've talked about Zozo on the channel before, a demonic entity said to haunt Ouija boards. An entity so malicious it's been known to cause physical harm on those who are unfortunate enough to run into it. Basically, if you're playing with a Ouija board and you end up contacting an entity and the letter Z or Z, depending on where you live, comes up at all, just stop right there. It's such a rare letter. Unless you asked it what its favorite anime is and the words dragon and ball came before, just don't take your chances. The Valentown Ghost. This footage was taken in the Valentown Museum in Victor, New York. Take a look. On April 21st of 2006, paranormal investigation was being carried out at the museum. Now, the quality of this footage isn't great, but you do see what looks like a semi-translucent figure walking out of the shadows and past the camera. This has actually become a rather famous piece of footage in paranormal circles as well, because apparently it's never been fully definitively explained. According to the New York Haunted Houses website, the historic Valentown Museum was built in 1879, originally called Valentown Hall. It's a 5-story building which is now a museum with thousands of old artifacts and a good number of ghosts. Spirits have been known to play an old-fashioned music box, move tools around in the basement, and people have even seen full-blown apparitions. So, is this strange figure in the video one of these ghosts? Let me know your thoughts down below.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot we have Ariana Grande. This is a terrifying paranormal encounter had by the super sweet Ariana Grande. Back in the Yours Truly era for the star, while in Kansas City, she and some friends took a visit to Stull Cemetery, which legend claims is one of the gates to hell on earth. This turned out to be a more haunting visit than the group had bargained for, however, as the singer recounted that suddenly they, quote, felt this sick, overwhelming feeling of negativity over the whole car, and we smelled sulfur, which is the sign of a demon, and there was a fly in the car randomly, which is another sign of a demon. I rolled down the window before we left and said, "We apologize, we didn't mean to disrupt your peace." Things only got more spooky for Ari though when she later tried to send her manager a picture of the cemetery. This photo she attempted to send came back with an error saying that the file couldn't be sent due to the fact that it was 666 megabytes. In our number 9 spot today we have Miley Cyrus. In an interview with Elle UK, Miley Cyrus opened up about a haunted apartment that she and her family stayed in during her 2009 European tour. She said, quote, "It was seriously so terrifying. It used to be an old bakery and they turned it into an apartment building, and I was having really crazy dreams and really scary things, and one night my little sister, it sounds crazy to tell you, but she was standing in the shower and all of a sudden I hear her scream. I run in there and the water had somehow flipped to hot, but it wasn't like the water had just changed, the knob had turned, but she hadn't turned it and it was burning her. She was really red." She continued on with the chilling tale by saying, quote, "Before I felt this, I thought I had seen a little boy sitting on the sink watching me take a shower, so I felt really freaked out. I was sitting there the next night, and maybe I'm crazy, but I could have sworn I could see this little boy sitting there on the sink caking his feet. My mom was getting mad that we were looking into it because she thought it was going to scare Noah, so then my aunt, who we hadn't told about this, comes in and she starts freaking out. She's like, I have no idea what happened, but I left the apartment and I came back and all of the doors and windows were open. I locked the apartment." She finished off her creepy story by saying that there were a few more strange things that happened, and this all was enough for her to swear off ever staying in that place again. Miley believes the haunting ties back into the history of the building and says that the apparition she saw matches up with who once lived there. In our number 8 spot today we have Adele. The haunting story of Adele starts off when she decided that she had had enough of fans and paparazzi outside of her London home, so she decided to purchase and move to a new home in Sussex. This house, in its past life before housing the Grammy Award winner, is said to have been a convent. Despite the change, Adele continued to be visited by people she didn't want in her home, but this time the visitors were otherworldly. The singer claimed that she began to hear noises that she was unable to find the source of. Things in her home also began to fall for seemingly no apparent reason, and apparently these paranormal encounters made Adele so unsettled that she had to hire a bodyguard to stay in her house full time. Hopefully these plaguing hauntings have since stopped, but only Adele knows for sure. In our number 7 spot today we have Ozzy Osbourne. One of the most famous rock stars ever, Ozzy has long been connected to the occult. I mean, Ozzy, Prince of Darkness, didn't just come from nowhere. Aside from the rumors, however, Ozzy has been fairly open about his personal connection to the devil. In a 1984 issue of Hit Parader, Ozzy said, quote, "I really wish I knew why I've done some of the things I've done over the years. Sometimes I think that I'm possessed by some outside spirit. A few years ago, I was convinced of that. I thought I truly was possessed by the devil. I remember sitting through The Exorcist a dozen times, saying to myself, myself, yeah, I can relate to that. He even has expressed confusion over whether or not if he's a medium for some kind of outside source or if something much more sinister is at play. When speaking of actually selling his soul, Ozzy had some less than comforting things to say. He said, quote, "I already have. Well, you sell your soul to the devil when you do something yourself that you shouldn't, and I already have. I've lived my life to the fullest. If there's an afterlife, I've got a good spot in the furnace. You know?" In our number 6 spot today we have Post Malone. Good old Posty has probably one of the most famous celebrity haunting stories, and it all started with a visit to ghost hunter Zach Bagans' museum. Within the museum was an old wine box that is said to hold a dybbuk, which in Jewish mythology is a malicious demon. This box had come to the museum after the previous owner bought it on eBay and had some really horrible things happen to him and his family afterwards. These included reports of him having really horrific nightmares, and this extended to anyone else who touched the box, and sometimes even those who had just been around it. Even worse, his own mother had a serious medical emergency after he had given this box to her. This is all to say the haunted item showed up in the Bagan Museum, and then 2018 rolled around and Post Malone decided to take a haunting tour of the occult collection. During this tour, Post Malone reached out and touched the box, and, well, he has been dealing with the consequences ever since. These are said to include the same horrific nightmares detailed by the box's previous owner.
Number 10. Legion. Jesus encounters a possessed man and calls on the demon to emerge, demanding to know its name, which is an important element of traditional exorcism practice. He finds the man is possessed by a multitude of demons who give the collective name of Legion. So, yeah, this demon is made of countless evil spirits able to incarnate into a physical body or separate into their respective forms at will. While the types of demons that make up Legion is unknown, they are said to be the same kind of demon that would inhabit a host and would have a single hive mind. Speaking of which, the demons of Legion do act like a hive mind, always speaking in unison and always knowing what the other demon is thinking and preparing to do. Legion appears as a floating sphere that is protected by an outer shell composed of massive innumerable humanoid bodies. This enormous lump of flesh conceals an inner core whose identity can vary. Legion, when possessing a human body, begins to torture the psychological person, making them have depressive and negative thoughts to erase any desire of life from its hosts. Their attitude of possessing human bodies is seen as a horrible act to most angels, as it deprives humans of their only weapon, free will. Number 9. Furfur. Furfur, also known as Furcifer, is a demon who is said to be the Count of Hell, leading 26 legions. He speaks in a hoarse voice, has a fiery tail, and usually appears as a stag. He is said to be able to make men and women fall in love, and also has command over great storms. He gives true answers to all things past, present, and future, but he must first be commanded to enter a magic triangle, for if not, he will lie and deceive the conjurer. But if he enters the triangle, he will answer truly and gladly speak about divinity, the creation of the world, himself, and other fallen angels. He can also destroy all the conjurer's enemies by burning them up. And if the magician requests it, he will not suffer temptations from any spirit or in any form. Furfur can also supposedly be called upon when a mortal wishes to take vengeance on other demons. This is likely included in his capability to destroy the conjurer's enemies. And I just gotta say, how scary can a demon be if its name is literally Furfur? It sounds like a name someone would give their cat. Number 8. Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former Seraphian turned into high-ranking demon who is considered one of the 7 princes of hell and oversees the Order of the Fly. In Catholic demonology, he is sometimes considered to be one of the first 3 angels to fall from heaven, along with Lucifer and Leviathan. He is also often confused with Satan, and the 2 names can be interchanged. However, strictly speaking, they are 2 separate entities. Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer and is one of the most loyal. He is commonly described as placed high in the hierarchy of hell and is seen as being associated with envy. He is also the prince of false gods, and flies play a large focus in imagery detailing him. The malignant spirit can even take the form of flies, according to some. I mean, ever heard of Lord of the Flies? Yup, that's him. Number 7. Mammon. Mammon in the New Testament of the Bible is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or an entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. After the rebellion in heaven, Mammon was banished to hell, where he is the one who finds underground precious metals that his demonic companions used to build their capital city, Pandemonium, by Lucifer's order. Mammon counsels the devils to be happy with what they've got and to create a home for themselves in hell. He is one of the 7 princes of hell, each representing the 7 deadly sins. Mammon represents greed and is known as the treasurer of hell, and was said to have had dealings with the Greek deity Zeus. It is thought that when you make a deal with the devil for wealth and fame, you are making it with Mammon. Number 6. Belphegor. Belphegor is a demon lord that presides over the sin of sloth and is one of the 7 princes that rules hell. He also assists people to make discoveries. For example, he seduces people by suggesting to them ingenious inventions that will make them rich and they wouldn't have to work hard for it. As one of the fallen angels, Belphegor was originally a member of the Order of the Principalities, and after his fall, he became a demonic counterpart to one of the 10 Sephiroth that oversee the Tree of Life. He is the biblical enemy of the 6 Sephiroth, the patron angel of beauty. It's said that if Belphegor were to become too influential in the world, then the beauty of it all would become tainted, causing ruination.
The incubus and succubus, 2 of the most infamous demons that disguise themselves as humans. These demons have been part of folklore for centuries. The incubus is a male demon that usually takes the form of a man to seduce women. It's said that the incubus visits women while they're asleep, using its human disguise to get close. As you can imagine, an encounter with an incubus is often described as extremely disturbing. Women would wake up feeling exhausted or traumatized with no clear memory of what had happened. Sometimes the incubus is blamed for nightmares and sleep paralysis. Then you have the succubus, the female counterpart of the incubus, taking on the appearance of an attractive woman to seduce men, often in their dreams. These seductive demons are known for their charm and incredibly attractive human disguises, making them hard to resist. But just like the incubus, the succubus uses her human guise to drain the life energy or vitality from her victims. Men who encounter a succubus might feel drained or sickly afterward, and in some tales they even suffer from mysterious illnesses or even death. We've all seen these things in movies and TV, even when they're not actually referred to outright as an incubus or a succubus. The trope of a seductive entity that lures in its victims before turning on them is pretty common. I mean, take your classic vampire, for instance, or that scene from The Shining where the hot lady Jack Nicholson is making out with turns into an old rotting hag. Scarring. Aswang is an umbrella term for malevolent creatures in Filipino folklore. So there are different types. You have your witch type creatures, vampire type monsters, a whole bunch, but almost all of them shapeshift. By day, an aswang might blend right into regular society, but come nightfall, the aswang transforms into its true monstrous form, whatever it may be. I think my favorite has to be the viscera sucker, which is even ghastlier than it sounds. These demons take the form of a beautiful woman by day, and by night, they grow wings and detach their upper torso from their legs before flying out into the night in search of food. Their diet consisting of people's internal organs, which they suck out with their long tongues. They especially love preying on pregnant women. These creatures are said to not only take on very convincing human forms, but are also skilled at mimicking human behavior. You might find yourself living next to someone who's actually an aswang without ever realizing it. This next one is a lot more subtle, but genuinely creepy. The doppelganger. So this is a word you've probably all heard before, often used to describe someone who looks a lot like you, like, oh damn, he looks like your doppelganger. But in German folklore, a doppelganger is actually a malevolent demon. A supernatural lookalike or double of a living person who looks exactly like you, but of course, isn't you. The doppelganger is traditionally seen as an omen of bad luck or impending doom. In some stories, seeing your double can mean that something terrible is about to happen to you or someone you care about. And as you can imagine, doppelgangers are said to use their appearance to impersonate or deceive. In some legends, a doppelganger can replace a person. kind of an invasion of the body snatchers type of thing. But not all stories about doppelgangers are malevolent, and sometimes they're seen as entities that appear to warn or challenge the person that they resemble. Huli Jing, or fox spirits, from Chinese mythology are known for their ability to shapeshift, and they often use this power to take on human forms. A Huli Jing can transform into a stunningly beautiful woman, which they sometimes use to charm and seduce men. Fox spirits aren't always malevolent, but the stories where they are will often revolve around them using their human disguises to trick or manipulate their victims. Nowadays, Huli Jing is an insult in Mandarin and Cantonese, a very specific term used to describe a woman who gets involved with married men. But as I said, the folklore surrounding Huli Jing isn't always bad. These fox spirits are often associated with magical powers and have a range of different abilities. In some tales, they're depicted as being more neutral or even benevolent, helping humans or protecting certain places. And if a nine-tailed fox spirit looks familiar to you, that's because these creatures also made their way into Japanese mythology, which of course led to fox demons showing up in anime like Naruto, Inuyasha, and a whole long list of others. Next, we have Chaneke. These little guys come from Mexican folklore, particularly from the Yucatan Peninsula. They're tiny, mischievous little beings that looked like old men or women, often just a few feet tall. They're kinda elf-like. Picture Dobby. Their main goal is to play tricks on people, especially in the jungle or forest. Chaneke are known for leading travelers astray, making them lose their way or forget where they're going. If you've ever heard of someone getting lost in the woods for no apparent reason, especially if they happened to be in Mexico, the Chaneke might be the culprit. They love to mess with people, making them feel disoriented or causing them to wander around aimlessly. One of their favorite tricks is to make it seem like time has passed when it actually hasn't, or vice versa. Stories of people walking through the forest and suddenly realizing hours have gone by but swearing it only felt like minutes have been attributed to these creatures for centuries. But Chaneke aren't usually harmful in a physical sense. Their antics can be annoying or unsettling, but I'd rather deal with one of these than a winged gut-sucking asswang. But if you really would prefer a casual stroll through the woods without any shenanigans, some believe that offering small gifts like food or tobacco can help keep them at bay. Jinns come from Arabic folklore and Islamic beliefs. They're often known as genies here in the West, which automatically makes you picture a friendly blue guy popping out of a bottle, but in the original context they're a lot more complicated and can be pretty terrifying. Jinn are supernatural creatures that exist alongside humans. They're known for having free will, just like us, which means they can be good, bad, or anywhere in between. And they take on many different forms, from animals like snakes or insects to humans. This makes them particularly sneaky and dangerous. They might pretend to be human to manipulate people, or in some cases just for their own amusement. For example, a jinn might disguise itself as a friendly stranger to gain someone's trust and then lead them into danger, or they might take on the appearance of someone familiar to simply mess with their victims. There are stories of jinn even mating with humans and having offspring, and in your more kind of familiar demonic sense, they're known to possess people's bodies as well. Rakshasa can be found in Buddhism, Jainism, and Hindu mythology. They're often depicted as powerful demons or evil spirits with a taste for chaos and destruction. They can change shape at will, which is bad considering the fact that they are known to like eating humans. Unlike creatures like Chaneke, who are more involved in playful trickery, Rakshasa have a much more sinister vibe. They're often portrayed being very cunning and manipulative, using their shape-shifting ability to deceive and harm their victims. One of the most famous Rakshasa in Hindu epic literature is Ravana from the Ramayana, a powerful demon king with 10 heads, often depicted as evil, but very sophisticated at the same time. A learned scholar and capable ruler, Rakshasas like Ravana often have very big ambitions, which can cause major problems in the world. Their ability to change shape makes them difficult to detect and even harder to defeat. Jared Leto bugs me. I don't know why the guy keeps getting all these incredibly high-paying roles, but whatever. Not here to talk about his acting, I'm here to talk about celebs being possessed by demons. And you could say that Leto was possessed by some type of malevolent force while playing the Joker. Either that, or he just took his method acting way too far. I'd go with the latter personally, but teach their own. While on the set of the S Squad, Jared Leto wasn't Jared Leto. He became the Joker himself, sending his fellow cast members disturbing gifts in the mail, most famously a dead rat to Margot Robbie. Aside from his whole Joker fiasco, Leto just strikes me as the type of dude who'd dress up in a white robe, head out to the desert, and preside over a group of his fans, all wearing white, in a super culty, multiple-day retreat. Oh wait, he has done that. I'd like to think it's just some bizarre performance art, but I don't know. I've done too many videos on cults now to take any chances. Not accusing him of anything, but you just never know. Up next is Kevin Spacey. The public opinion on this guy took a pretty dramatic turn, didn't it? I feel uncomfortable and awkward just standing here saying his name. I haven't even gotten to the meat of it. Want to talk about a celebrity revealing their dark side? Spacey's the perfect example. For those of you who have been living under a rock, in 2017 Spacey faced some pretty serious allegations of misconduct. Accusations surfaced from multiple individuals, some who'd been underage at the time Spacey had interacted with them. Following these allegations, Spacey was removed from various projects, including the hit series House of Cards. 8 staff members on that show claimed Spacey had been inappropriate with them. And just when we thought we probably wouldn't be hearing from this guy again though, in 2018 he uploads this really creepy video to YouTube on Christmas Eve called Let Me Be Frank, where he gives this cryptic, ominous monologue to the camera in a gentlemanly southern accent while wearing a Santa Claus apron. And man, he was trying to channel the devil in this monologue, he did a pretty good job of it. If you were to go back to 2012, you probably wouldn't ever think Ezra Miller would turn out to be a complete creep. I mean, the actor from Perks of Being a Wallflower? Come on. Yeah, well, things change. Sometimes for the worse. I'm not saying Ezra Miller is actually possessed by a demon, obviously, but I don't know, it seems like it. And I'm not just chalking his terrible behavior up to mental health issues either. Obviously, there's something going on. But, I mean, there are plenty of people who struggle with their mental health and will never do the abhorrent things Miller has. And the list of bad things is longer than you probably think. There have been violent attacks on totally unsuspecting innocent people. Miller threw a chair at a bar in Hawaii after yelling at a bunch of people out of nowhere. The chair whacked a woman in the head. A couple who'd allowed the actor to stay at their home were threatened with violence for some reason. Miller's also been accused of grooming. The list just goes on and on. Next up, we have the former frontman of the Norwegian black metal band Gall of Gorgoroth. Now, the name Gall may not ring a bell for the Taylor Swift fans in the audience, but this guy is very well known in the metal scene, and a lot of this is thanks to an infamous interview he did for the documentary Metal Headbanger's Journey. The doc explores tons of metal subgenres, including black metal and some of its more controversial performers, including Gall, who's often seen as a Satanist, even though he has a very different definition of that than many people think. Anyway, when the director Sam Dunn sat down for an interview with him and asked what the inspiration was for his music, there was this long, uncomfortable silence before Gall simply stated,
Satan.
In 2005, just before this documentary was released, Gall had landed himself in jail after severely beating a man at a party and tormenting him for a prolonged period. At one point, handing the guy a cup and telling him he was going to drink his BLOOD. Gall claimed the unnamed man, though, was the one who attacked him first. Probably never know. Who can resist just sitting down and watching the entire Men in Black movie when it starts playing on TV? Will Smith, just an icon. He's been a cowboy, a cop, he's fought aliens, vampire zombie thingies, he's just an icon, which is why it was so odd to watch him walk up to Chris Rock and smack him in the face at the 2022 Academy Awards. It was almost like he was possessed. Now, unlike many demonic possessions though, Will's malevolent entity wasn't inside him, nor was he inside her for that matter, and hadn't been for a very long time. But she was sitting right next to him, and through her powerful influence, she cast her hellish spell on Smith, who walked onto the stage like a ghoulish marionette under the control of an unseen hand of evil to deliver the historic slap that would echo through the homes of the dumbstruck public around the globe, forever changing the course of history. With that said though, I'd also like to say he's a grown man who's very much responsible for his own actions. I know.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Ordo Templi Orientis. The Ordo Templi Orientis is a controversial esoteric organization that was founded in the early 20th century by Karl Kellner and Theodor Reuss in Germany. Originally meant to be modeled after and associated with European Freemasonry, under the leadership of famous occultist Aleister Crowley, the group had a change in philosophy to be more aligned with Crowley's principles of Thelema. The cult is known for its secretive nature and controversial practices, including the use of ritualistic magic and sexual practices as a means of spiritual advancement. The organization has a hierarchical structure and emphasizes the importance of individualism and personal freedom. Of course, like with most cults, there are some controversial practices, but despite this controversy, the group has attracted a following among those interested in occultism and alternative spirituality. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Order of the Black Sun. The Order of the Black Sun is a secretive and controversial cult that has been the subject of much speculation and debate in recent years. Founded in the early 20th century, the group is believed to be based in Europe and has been linked to a number of bizarre and disturbing practices, including human sacrifice, occult rituals, and the worship of ancient deities. Members of the cult are said to be highly secretive and tightly knit, with their activities shrouded in mystery and hidden from public view. Many have claimed that the Order of the Black Sun is involved in a wide range of illegal and nefarious activities that include high-level crimes, as well as the manipulation of political and financial systems for their own gain. Many people claim that this group was founded by Heinrich Himmler and that its members included many high-ranking SS officers. People also have suggested that this cult attempted to use demon summoning as a way to help them win World War II. Even the demons were like, no, absolutely not. Despite numerous investigations into the group, very little concrete information is known about the Order of the Black Sun, and many questions remain unanswered about their true motives and activities. However, what is certain is that this enigmatic cult continues to captivate and intrigue people around the world, with many eager to uncover the truth about this very shadowy organization. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Hellfire Club. The Hellfire Club was a notorious secret society that existed in Britain during the 18th century. It was an extensive club that included some of the wealthiest and most influential people of the time, including politicians, aristocrats, and members of the royal family. The club was known for its very decadent parties, which were said to involve heavy drinking and gambling and all of the things people think these elite secretive parties hold. However, there were also rumors of more sinister activities, such as satanic rituals and human sacrifice. The Hellfire Club was shrouded in secrecy, and its members went to great lengths to keep their activities hidden from the public. However, their reputation as a group of debauched and immoral individuals eventually caught up with them, and they became the subject of scandalous rumors and gossip. Today, the legacy of the Hellfire Club lives on in pop culture, with many books, movies, TV shows featuring references to the group and their supposed activities. Despite these references, though, the true nature of the club's activities remain a mystery to this day. We're just left to speculate and come up with conspiracy theories. Drop your best one down below. In our number 7 spot today, we have the Order of the Nine Angels. This culty cult is a controversial and secretive organization that has been associated with the occult, Satanism, as well as having ties to some pretty controversial, hateful, and horrible beliefs. The group's origins are murky, but it is believed to have been founded in the United Kingdom in the 1970s. The ONA claims to be based on the principles of traditional Satanism and advocates for a return to pre-Christian pagan society. The teachings of the group are said to be highly esoteric and involve a very complex system of rituals, beliefs, and practices, which sounds really cool and mysterious until you hear that the group has been accused of promoting violence, extremism, and hate. Many people have accused the group of practicing black magic, as well as using the practice of summoning demons, and apparently this group has even been able to be linked to horrifying crimes, which include killings. Because of the nature of the controversy surrounding this group, its teachings have been banned in several countries, but despite these bans, the group continues to operate in secret, with its members communicating online and in private meetings. In our number 6 spot today, we have the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was a mystical and magical organization that emerged in the late 19th century in England. It was founded by 3 prominent figures, William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Liddell McGregor Mathers, and William Robert Woodman. All three of these guys were fascinated by the esoteric teachings of ancient civilizations and sought to create a system that combined spiritual and mystical practices. The order drew upon various mystical and occult traditions, including Kabbalah, alchemy, astrology, and tarot, in order to create a comprehensive system of magical practices. Its teaching emphasized personal development, spiritual evolution, and the attainment of spiritual knowledge and enlightenment. The order's rituals and teachings were highly secretive and were only accessible to members who had undergone a rigorous initiation process. Its members included prominent figures such as Aleister Crowley, of course, W.B. Yeats, and Arthur Edward Waite, who went on to make significant contributions to the fields of mysticism and occultism. Despite the relatively short existence of this group, the order has had a profound impact on modern Western esotericism and continues to inspire spiritual seekers and magicians to this day. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Led Zeppelin. Rock and roll and Satanism have long been connected in some people's eyes, so it's no wonder that legendary band Led Zeppelin has experienced some of these dark connections. Back in January of 1982, evangelical broadcaster Paul Crouch began accusing different rock artists of hiding messages in their songs through backmasking, and one example that he pointed out was the classic Zeppelin tune Stairway to Heaven. He directly pointed to a segment of the song where he claimed that when played in reverse, he was hearing the words, "Oh, here's to my sweet Satan, the one whose little path would make me sad, whose power is Satan. He will give those with him 666. There was a little tool shed where he made us suffer, sad Satan." Since this accusation of satanic messages, this has definitely become one of the most famous instances of alleged backmasking, which has only added to the legacy of Zeppelin. In our number 9 spot today, we have Bob Dylan. Not necessarily who I expected to put on this list, but there was an interesting interview back in 2004 that made many people speculate that the musician might have sold his soul. In the interview, he was explaining that he owes his years of fame and success to a deal he made. The interviewer asked, "Why are you still out here?" To which Dylan replied, "It goes back to that destiny thing. I made a bargain with it, you know, long time ago, and I'm holding up my end." The interviewer, of course, had to follow up on what that cryptic message was, so he asked, "What was your bargain?" Dylan replied, "To get where I am now." The interviewer asked, "Should I ask who you made the bargain with?" He replied, "With the chief commander." The interviewer clarified, "On this earth?" To which he answered, "In this earth and in a world we can't see." I can totally see why some people decided to draw their own conclusions from this. I mean, it sounds like he is basically speaking in riddles. While he doesn't outright say that he sold his soul, some believe that this is what he was trying to say in that interview. In our number 8 spot today, we have Ozzy Osbourne. One of the most famous rock stars ever, Ozzy has long been connected to the occult. I mean, Ozzy, Prince of Darkness, didn't just come from nowhere. Aside from the rumors, however, Ozzy has been fairly open about his personal connection to the devil. In a 1984 issue of Hit Parader, Ozzy said, quote, "I really wish I knew why I've done some of the things I've done over the years. Sometimes I think that I'm possessed by some outside spirit. A few years ago, I was convinced of that. I thought I truly was possessed by the devil. I remember sitting through The Exorcist a dozen times, saying to myself, yeah, I can relate to that." He even has expressed confusion over whether or not he's a medium for some kind of outside source, or if something much more sinister is at play. When speaking of actually selling his soul, well, Ozzy had some less than comforting things to say. He said, quote, "I already have. Well, you sell your soul to the devil when you do something yourself that you shouldn't, and I already have. I've lived my life to the fullest. If there's an afterlife, I've got a good spot in the furnace, you know?" I'll see you there, Ozzy. In our number 7 spot today, we have Jay-Z. Rapper Jay-Z has long had some interesting stories and conspiracies surrounding him, including his alleged connection to the Illuminati. You know, this secret society that conspiracy theorists claims possesses this crazy, unknowable power. People often make this connection with a lot of people in the rap and hip-hop industry, but it happens to Jay-Z often due to him referencing the devil multiple times in his music videos. I mean, especially in the song Lucifer. People also make connections to certain imagery shown in his music videos and even in his merch, or the things he wears himself as well, to things like the occult and Satan himself. Whether it's a pentagram, the all-seeing eye, or the phrase "do what thou wilt," it seems as though Jay-Z has some people in a satanic panic. In our number 6 spot today we have Robert Johnson. Well known for being one of the most incredible guitar players of all time, Robert was one of those people that some members of the public simply just couldn't see how he was so talented, so of course that led to some extremely haunting rumors swirling about him. Some people claimed that he was only able to gain his talent through supernatural means, which many claimed was by way of the devil. Story goes that Robert headed to the crossroads where the devil took his guitar, tuned it, and showed him how to master the blues. Unfortunately, however, with this eerie tale comes a very tragic end. Some say that in exchange for his abilities, Robert had to offer the later half of his life. He exchanged much of his life in order to make this deal. Sadly, Robert would pass away at the exceptionally young age of 27. Many claim this was actually due to a poisoning made by a jealous man. Whatever the real story behind his life, talents, and tragic death, the legacy of Robert certainly lives on. He was an incredibly prolific musician who left behind quite the record collection.
Number 10. The violinist. It's been long said that successful artists have made a deal with the devil, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. An Italian violinist named Giuseppe Tartini claimed the devil appeared to him in a dream and played for him the most incredible piece of music he had ever heard. Here is how he described the experience. One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. Everything went as I wished. My new servant anticipated my every desire. Among other things, I gave him my violin to see if he could play. How great was my astonishment on hearing a sonata so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence as I had ever even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. Upon waking, Giuseppe tried to recreate it, and that became his magnum opus, known as the Devil's Trill Sonata. Number 9. Exorcism gone wrong. In 1997, Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, and he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man he was dealing with began to curse and spit, and started using English instead of his native Italian. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel said he returned fire with prayers and other ritual recitations, demanding that the demon reveal its name. He said, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." Father Gabriel was shocked. He did not expect to receive such a terrifying response. The father mostly used prayers as his weapon, reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. As Father Gabriel continually commanded the demon to leave the host, it eventually left, but my goodness, that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 8. Witch trials. Sarah Good was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft in the Salem witch trials, which occurred in 1692 in Massachusetts. On March 25th, 1692, Sarah was tried for witchcraft, and when she was brought in, the accusers immediately began to rock back and forth and moan, seemingly in response to Sarah's presence. Later in the trial, one of the accusers fell into a fit. Now, Sarah denied the allegations against her, but another woman on trial admitted to being the devil's servant. She stated that a tall man dressed in all black came to them, demanding they sign their names in a great book. Although initially refusing, she eventually wrote her name after Sarah, and another woman forced her to. When Sarah was allowed the chance to defend herself in front of the 12 jurors in the Salem Village Meeting House, she argued her innocence, proclaiming that the other 2 were the real witches. In the end, however, Sarah was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. So, did she really meet the devil, or was she innocent? Who knows? Number 7. Strayed from the path. This is the testimony of Jennifer Perez, who was brought up in a Christian home. She strayed from that path, got into drugs, died, and was sent to hell. Fortunately, she was given a second chance, but this is her story. She was in the hospital and her spirit woke up, but her body didn't. As a spirit, 2 men dressed in red approached her and told her to come with them. She went to heaven and saw the Lord and 2 angels, Gabriel and Michael. She and Gabriel went through a black door, and it was dark and they were falling. The farther they fell, the hotter it was, and she said it smelled like sulfur. They got to the bottom and she realized that she was in hell, seeing people being tortured by various demons. The cries and torture scared her, and then she saw a massive red creature in the middle of it all just watching everything. She assumed that this was the devil, and it terrified her. After this, she then ascended back to heaven and was asked for a second chance. She then woke up in the hospital, alive, and devoted the rest of her life to God. Number 6. Mom met the devil. A user on Reddit posted this story about the time their mother met the devil. They said, "My mom told me a story of when she met the devil. She was in high school, she had a friend who was dating an older man. He was probably 20 to 30 years older than her, and he gave her a necklace. Not wanting to get caught by her parents, she gave the necklace to my mom. She wore it, and that night when my mom slept, she dreamt of a man. Clean cut and handsome, but disturbingly evil. She said all she knew about the man was that he was pure evil. He came up to her face, eyes locked on her, stone cold and expressionless, reached for her neck and grabbed the necklace from her neck and twirled it in a circle in the air like a witch's pendant. She jolted awake and couldn't feel the necklace, and in a panic she looked all around for the necklace and found it under her pillow in a perfect spiral."
And we're kicking off the list with Baal. Baal is a figure you'll find in books about demons like the Lesser Key of Solomon, a book about demons written by someone who didn't want their name on it. Baal is a pretty scary demon, though I'm not sure if there are any demons that aren't scary. What sets Baal apart is that he's supposedly in charge of a whopping 66 legions of demons. So if you ever manage to summon this guy, you'd probably end up with a whole army of other demons to deal with as well. Besides his demon posse, this one's got some powers of his own. His main thing is invisibility. He can also make other folks invisible. As for what Baal looks like, that's a bit of a mixed bag. This guy is hard to pin down, even without the whole invisibility thing, which makes him even scarier. He's said to transform into a cat, a toad, a man. Sometimes he's even depicted as a mix of all three. Now we're heading over to Bali to discuss the Layak. These are not naturally born demons. They started out as normal human beings who had their souls corrupted by black magic, transforming them into these terrifying. During the daytime, they look human, but when night falls, they take on their true form. A large head with bulging eyes and long fangs. I say head because their head becomes separated from their body, floating around in the air with their entrails hanging out below. I've talked about the Layak a couple times. I just find them so creepy and cool. You can find these creatures hanging out around graveyards where they enjoy feeding on corpses, but their primary target, pregnant women. They like sucking the blood from unborn younglings. I think I'll take Satan over that any day, although I'm not a pregnant woman, in case you haven't noticed, so I'd probably be fine, but it's something I'd prefer not to witness. You know, you don't have to have something bad happen to you to know that it isn't ideal. Number 8, Krampus. Dealing with a demon would be a miserable experience at any point in the year, but Christmas, I gotta deal with the horned goat devil during the most magical time of the year. That is sad and unfair. Everyone's heard of Krampus. If Santa is Batman, then Krampus is the Joker, the anti-Santa, arriving to spread punishment to those on the naughty list every holiday season. Some young ones might get away relatively unscathed, a slap on the wrist, if you will, in the form of a beating from a demonic goat creature, but, better than the next option. Those who are particularly crappy throughout the year might just be taken away forever, thrown into Krampus's basket and whisked away before being drowned. Now, on the positive side, if the brat was bad enough where being kidnapped by a magical monster and drowned to death was a fitting enough punishment, then they probably deserved it, and the parents would probably be relieved to see them go. Next on the list we have the Yuki Onna. In Japanese folklore, the Yuki Onna, which translates to snow woman, is a type of yokai, a chilling character often depicted as a vengeful spirit associated with winter and snowstorms. She is said to appear on cold, snowy nights dressed in a white. She's also said to be incredibly beautiful. She mainly targets travelers or lost souls in remote, snow-covered areas. Yuki Onna typically approaches her victims silently and without warning, sucking out their life force with her icy cold breath, leaving them as frozen statues. Some versions portray her as a malevolent spirit who takes pleasure in causing harm to humans. others show her to have a bit more of a sympathetic side, depicting her as a woman who died in the snow and is now bound to the winter landscape. And in these stories, she may spare those who show some kindness or even fall in love with some of her victims and set them free. All I know is that I hate winter, and the last thing I would want if I were lost in the Japanese Alps would be getting tricked into being frozen by a sexy ice spirit. And at number 6, we have Pichachas. In Hindu and Buddhist mythology, you've got these creatures called Pichachas. They're all about darkness, death, and hanging out in the underworld. Basically, they're the embodiment of evil itself. These guys like to go after the living, and like most demons, they clock in for work around nightfall. They have terrifying powers in their arsenal. We're talking shape-shifting, they can change form to mess with your head, and invisibility. So you've got to be on your guard, especially when the moon's out, because that's prime time for these underworld bad boys to come out and cause some. In a nutshell, Pichachas are the real deal when it comes to supernatural troublemakers. Darkness, death, and possession are their specialty. Stick to the daylight hours and keep an eye out for any shape-shifting, invisible creatures lurking around. Not that you can really keep your eye out for either of those things, so I guess you're screwed.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have Elvis Presley. There have been rumors and conspiracy theories surrounding Elvis Presley's success and his alleged deal with the devil to achieve fame and fortune. Some fans and theorists believe that Presley's success was not solely due to his musical talent, but rather his involvement in the occult and the supernatural. One of the most prevalent rumors surrounding Presley's alleged deal with the devil is the fact that he was born a twin, but his brother Jesse Garon was stillborn. According to the rumor, Presley made a pact with the devil to trade his twin brother's life for his own success. I personally think that that is a particularly cruel rumor and conspiracy, and am much more on the side of those who believe that Presley's interest in mysticism and the occult was evidence of his involvement in dark practices. Some point to his love for black magic and spiritualism as proof that he made a deal with the devil. Despite the persistent rumors, there is no concrete evidence that Elvis Presley ever sold his soul or made a deal with the devil. These rumors are likely just a product of his enduring fame and the allure of the supernatural. In our number 9 spot today, we have Justin Bieber. I'll be honest, I am a believer, so it was news to me when I found out that some people think he too has sold his soul. Some have pointed to his music videos and lyrics, as well as his public behavior and controversial actions as evidence of his supposed pact with the devil. People believe that Bieber's meteoric rise to fame and success at a young age was too sudden to be natural, and that he must have made a deal with the devil to achieve it, while others point to his lyrics, music videos, and imagery, which they believe contain hidden symbols and messages associated with the occult. Many of these claims are most likely the result of speculation, rumors, and conspiracy theories fueled by Bieber's controversial personal life and the internet's tendency to spread sensationalized stories, but hey, who am I to say for sure? In our number 8 spot today, we have Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth was a Hungarian noblewoman who lived from August of 1560 to August of 1614. She was born into one of the oldest and most powerful families in Transylvania, and she was well educated and ran various estates and bore many children. Oh, and this is all happening while she is also killing young women and bathing in their blood. Yeah, weird and gross, and also terrible. Elizabeth is known for killing her servants and bathing in their blood as she believed it would keep her young. Not only this, but she is also said to have made a deal with the devil in order to gain this sort of power. All accounts of Elizabeth remember her as a terrible, evil person. It is said that her number of victims most likely ranges somewhere from 175 to 200, but some people claim that it might be as many as 600. It is no wonder she is referred to as Countess Dracula. In our number 7 spot today, we have Madonna. Madonna has been accused of making a deal with the devil for her success and longevity in the music industry. The rumors have persisted over the years due to her use of provocative and controversial imagery in her performances, as well as her supposed connections to secret societies and the occult. Some people believe that her massive success in the music industry and her often controversial behavior are all signs that she made a deal with the devil. Others point to her use of religious imagery in her music and performances, which they believe is a deliberate attempt to subvert traditional religious values. Some people just can't get over that the girl wants to have fun, and she's been having fun in the public eye for decades now. I get it, Madonna gets a little carried away from time to time, but that doesn't mean the woman sold her soul. Or does it? In our number 6 spot today, we have Johann Faust. According to the stories passed down about this man, it is said that he was an alchemist and astrologer who lived in Germany during the early 1500s. It is said that in his plight to become the smartest man in the world, while also enjoying as many earthly pleasures as possible, he summoned the help of a demon named Mephistopheles. There are terrible stories about how cruel and truly evil this man was, and as a professor, it is said that he looked down on everyone else. Local priests apparently believed that he had actually made a deal with the devil in which he sold his soul to him, and there are also stories that say his pet dog was actually a demon who was able to shapeshift. During his life, he did publish several grimoires, and in 1540, while conducting some sort of alchemic experiment, his laboratory exploded. Just thought that was a fun little anecdote to share with you guys. Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Zozo. Would this be a list of Ouija board demons without Zozo? Zozo seems to have not been around for very long, but he is powerful, and in fact, as we talk about him, he only gains strength. Zozo is a demon who, if summoned during a Ouija board experience, even if you close everything properly and say goodbye as you should, you'll still be able to feel his presence lingering around for quite some time afterward. Many people have recounted their stories with Zozo, and while he is a demon, he acts like a poltergeist and has attempted to harm people, or at the very least has been known to throw furniture and other possessions around. These are only a few of the reasons why, if you find that you've summoned Zozo, it's imperative you close the Ouija board properly and then also probably burn it after too, just to be safe, you know? In our number 9 spot today, we have the Donovan family. In the early 1970s, famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were called to the home of the Donovan family, and when they arrived, they found them all terrified. They witnessed loud pounding and other inhuman noises coming from inside of the walls. The wallpaper was peeling and the water was running red. The Warrens began their investigation, and this included asking them questions to try and find out if there was a source of the haunting, such as a recently passed away family member or some kind of new secondhand item. Through this questioning, it was revealed that one member of the family had used a Ouija board and ended up contacting someone who had died in the neighborhood 10 years earlier. The Warrens knew it was time for them to call a priest because they believed that the entity that had been reached through the Ouija board was actually a demon just posing as the person who had passed away. Following an exorcism, it is said that things in the home slowly returned to normal, but the events stayed with the entire family. One member who witnessed the hauntings and the exorcism said, quote, "I nor anyone else in my family have ever before witnessed anything so weird and terrifying." In our number 8 spot today, we have Aciel. Aciel is one of the electors of hell and is monitored by the archangel Raphael. Aciel is one of the 7 planetary demons, as he is the demon of Saturn. He dwells in the bowels of Earth and can be summoned by being invoked 3 times, but he will only appear in a magical circle that has been prepared specifically for him. His appearance is basically that of a tall, buff demon with reddish-brown skin. He has 4 horns on each side of his head and has creepy yellow eyes. He does have a human form in which he appears as a handsome man, but only stands around 3 feet tall in this form. He believes in the superiority of demons to ordinary beings, and he holds a lot of anger towards any kind of deity. He does have the power to make those who summon him rich, and the good news is that he doesn't have a lot of disdain for humans, but the catch is as long as you don't worship any kind of god. Aciel shows great respects for both Lilith and Lucifer, as he believes that the gods don't do anything other than sit and watch as people struggle in sin. So I guess with him, as long as you are not a god, you're probably safe, but I wouldn't risk summoning him, just in case. In our number 7 spot today, we have Naki. The Naki is a demonic jinn that originated in Estonian, Finnish, and Swedish mythology. She sometimes appears as a floating tree trunk, a large black horse, a hound, a silvery fish, a beautiful woman, or an ugly fisherman. With all these shapes and forms, it's no wonder people say that they aren't really sure what she actually looks like. She lives in the water, and she waits until some unsuspecting person catches their reflection in it, and that is when she strikes, pulling them into the waters below. It is said that her favorite places to make her home are in under bridges that cross rivers, docks, or piers, or in murky pools and wells. The good thing is that there are ways to ward off her evil, and that is by either reciting a magical spell 3 times before entering the water, wearing a charm made of iron, or by keeping a knife near you in the water. I think that last one is probably the least ideal of all of the options if you have the choice though. In our number 6 spot today we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former seraph who turned into a high-ranking demon. He is one of the princes of hell and also oversees the Order of the Fly. He, Satan, and Lucifer form the triarchy of hell, which makes him one of the supreme monarchs of the underworld. As a seraphim, he was under the archangel Gabriel, but he was one of the very first angels to fall. Beelzebub is often confused with Satan, and while the two names can technically be interchanged, they are two separate entities, and in some writings, they even disagree. Beelzebub is associated with pride and gluttony, and he has also been held responsible for demonic possessions throughout the years. Unfortunately, flies are a very important thing for him, as it is said that he can take the form of flies. Now, his main job is to rule over the fallen angels as well as all the demons that are originally from hell.
Coming in at number 10 is meditation. On April 13th, 2022, Stephanie Hosemeyer replied to the question online that read, "Have you accidentally summoned a demon?" She replied by saying, "Yes, I did. Wow, what a mistake. I think I was just meditating with these stones a friend gave me for watching her dogs for her. They were polished stones in a medicine bag. So I was holding 4 in each hand and kinda just letting my mind wander when I got slammed in the back and saw white stars in my head. I heard demonic laughter and a bunch of banging upstairs. I blew out my candle and fled the house. When I went back, the house seemed okay, but that night I saw shadow crawlers all over the walls and poltergeist activities began. I heard children laughing when my kids were at school. Things came up missing to be found where I already looked. I saw a figure in the hallway so many times I put my hand out to not run into him. And my luck was so bad, it still is. We fled that house in the night and burned it down." Number 9. School summoning. Now, according to legend, one cold night in the early 1600s, a group of schoolboys were naively dabbling in arcane magic when, by some terrible ritual using mere bread and sticks, they summoned Satan himself from the flames of the fireplace. Now, the terrified boys sought desperately to send the Prince of Darkness back to where he had come from, but to no avail. They then tried to hide their mistake, however, realizing this might not go away as easily as their other mistakes, they needed help. The boys hurried for the schoolmaster, old Mr. Hodgson, who already well knew something was awry after his ensorcelled trencher had begun to spin by some necromantic spell. The schoolmaster hurried at once to confront the evil intruder, whom he found smugly awaiting him. Tauntingly, Satan called out to the schoolmaster, "Ye know the bargain, thou hast 3 chances to defeat me in battle of wits, or else thy soul is mine for eternity." Now, the wise schoolmaster challenged his adversary to first count all the blades of grass on the castle croft. In a flash of smoke, the devil hurried away to the banks of the Irwell near Bury Castle and completed the task in less than an hour. The schoolmaster then challenged him to count all the grains of sand on the school brow, but in this too the devil succeeded. For his final task, the undaunted and steady schoolmaster challenged Satan to count all the letters in the parish church's large Bible. After jeering that too would prove easy, Satan made his way to the nearby church, and upon finding the leather-bound book on the pulpit, he heaved open the cover. At once, however, the words on the ancient vellum began to dance and blur before his eyes, and he knew that he had been beaten. Enraged, Satan departed back into the fireplace, and with a deafening crack, a large fissure appeared in the stone. To this day, the devil's stone remains visible and now sits under a clock. Number 8. 2 demons. A Reddit user said they contacted Lilith and Lucifer. When asked what happened, they said, "You can feel their presence. When I summoned Lilith, she lightly had her energy around my neck, and I felt heavy weight on my body. She whispered to me, and I spoke to her, asked my parents' names, and she knew them. Treat Lilith like a mother and don't take her lightly. Lucifer I summoned, and near the end of the summoning, I got past the fear stage where he kept putting the image of a skinwalker in my head, and then I made a deal with him in a white room, and his face was concealed to join the 1006 and to have my demands done after I wrote a letter to him." Number 7. Lasting effects. This Reddit user made a post called "I summoned a demon successfully." They said, "So tonight I was speaking a mantra to Axeman for the first time. I did for about 10 minutes. I've always been somewhat of a critic of it all, and nothing happened for the first 2 hours. About an hour ago to writing this, I was watching a video and had one earbud out and one in. I heard a growl with my ear that didn't have an an earbud in it. Directly after, I got and still am completely ice cold and have goosebumps. It currently feels like someone is watching me, observing. I've absolutely never felt these kind of things before, just felt almost like a pinch on my left foot, and it is surrounding like there's movement coming from my kitchen. Am I angering it by sharing this? Oh my gosh, writing that question gave me a headache. It's going on and off the pain. It's now the morning after, and I had extremely weird vivid dreams, which I may have like 1 to 2 times a month, and I had around 4 I can recall. The most interesting, while frightening one, considered me and a friend driving somewhere I'd never seen before. We got out of our car along with everyone else for some reason. Suddenly it began raining in one specific spot in the middle of a bunch of trees. Immediately after, a volcano rose up from the ground in the distance and started spewing hellfire everywhere. The last moment I remember was fiery skies masked in smoke. I mean, it really felt like I was in hell. Number 6. Using prayer. This online user shared their story by saying, I admit that I stupidly tried summoning a demon. Mostly, however, to have fun. I didn't think a demon would answer my call. Oh, and hell they did. Within a matter of months, I was hearing birds talk to me. I thought I was crazy, but I checked in with many doctors, but they couldn't seem to figure it out. As it turns out, after checking with the pastor, we certainly were having demon problems. Dang, and these demons are not easy to get around either. They are tricky and sneaky, and the only way I lived through this was by prayer.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have DMX. DMX, also known as Earl Simmons, was an American rapper and actor and just absolute legend. In interviews, DMX has shared stories about his belief in the existence of demons and his experiences with the supernatural. DMX has claimed that he was visited by a demon when he was a child and that the experience left him feeling traumatized. He also said that he had encountered demons in his adult life and that he believes in the power of prayer and spiritual protection to ward off their influence. In an interview with the Breakfast Club radio show, DMX spoke about a particularly intense encounter with a demon while he was staying in a hotel room. He described feeling a dark presence in the room and being physically attacked by an invisible force. DMX said that he used prayer and spiritual techniques to banish the demon from the room. DMX's experiences with demons and the paranormal have been a source of fascination for many of his fans, and they have contributed to his reputation as a larger-than-life figure in the music industry that will be remembered for many years to come. Demon X, that's so funny. Aw, R.I.P. In our number 9 spot today, we have Kenneth Anger. Kenneth Anger is an American underground filmmaker and author known for his experimental and surreal films that often explore themes related to occultism, mysticism, and sexuality. Anger has been associated with the occult since the 1940s, and he is considered one of the most influential figures in the American underground film scene. While Anger has never claimed to have had any direct encounters with demons, he has incorporated occult symbolism and rituals into his films and writings. In his book, Hollywood Babylon, Anger details the sordid and often scandalous history of Hollywood, which he believes is linked to the dark forces of the occult. One of Anger's most famous works is the film Invocation of My Demon Brother, which features a soundtrack composed by Mick Jagger and includes footage of various occult rituals, including a black mass. The film has been interpreted by some as a genuine attempt to invoke demonic forces, although Anger himself has denied this interpretation. Despite his reputation as an occultist, Anger has also been a vocal critic of organized religion and has described himself as a follower of the philosophy of Thelema, which was developed by occultist Aleister Crowley. Thelema emphasizes individualism and the pursuit of one's own true will, and it has been embraced by many other artists and thinkers throughout the 20th century. In our number 8 spot today, we have Bob Larson. Bob Larson is an American preacher and radio and television personality and a controversial Christian evangelist who has made a name for himself as an exorcist and paranormal investigator. Larson has claimed that he has personally been possessed by demons on multiple occasions and that he has successfully performed exorcisms on thousands of people. According to Larson, his first encounter with demonic possession occurred when he was a young man living in Denver, Colorado. He claims that he was taken over by a demon and began speaking in tongues and experiencing physical symptoms such as convulsions and and blackouts. Larson's claims of demonic possession have been met with skepticism by some who argue that he is exploiting people's fears and insecurities for his own gain. However, Larson has a large following of devoted supporters who believe that his work as an exorcist is a legitimate form of spiritual healing. Regardless of whether or not Larson's claims of possession are true, his work as an exorcist has made him quite a controversial figure in the world of paranormal investigation and a source of fascination for many people. In our number 7 spot today we have Lorraine Warren. We all know Lorraine Warren, okay? Of course, she was a renowned paranormal investigator and author who, along with her husband, Ed Warren, investigated numerous cases of alleged hauntings and demonic possessions. According to Lorraine, she was herself briefly possessed by a demon during an investigation in 1973. During the investigation, Lorraine reportedly felt a dark presence inside of her and began speaking in an unknown language. She also experienced physical symptoms such as convulsions and difficulty breathing. Lorraine's husband Ed, who was also present, was able to perform a ritual to expel the demon from her body. Lorraine's claims of being possessed have been met with skepticism by some who argue that the Warrens were more interested in promoting their own work than in conducting unbiased investigations. However, Lorraine's reputation as a paranormal investigator has earned her a place in pop culture, and her stories about haunted houses, demonic possessions, and other supernatural phenomena continue to captivate audiences. I mean, the Conjuring series is highly successful, and it's based on the work of the Warrens. In our number 6 spot today we have Lucy Liu. Actor and artist Lucy Liu, in a 1999 interview with Us Weekly magazine, shared a chilling experience she had with a ghost while staying in a haunted hotel in New Mexico. According to Lucy, she was sleeping in her room when she suddenly woke up in the middle of the night to find a ghostly figure standing at the foot of her bed. The figure was dressed in a cowboy hat and boots and appeared to be a man from the Old West. Lucy said that the ghost spoke to her in a language she couldn't understand and then disappeared. Lucy's encounter with the ghost left her feeling unsettled, and she reportedly slept with the lights on for the rest of her stay at the hotel. Especially after this experience, Lucy has said that she believes in the existence of ghosts and is open to the possibility of the supernatural.
It is said that a demon's eye color signifies its order in the mythological hierarchy of the demon society, with black-eyed demons being the most common and the weakest demons around, which, by the way, in no means stops them from being absolutely terrifying in every way, shape, and form imaginable. Anyways, it is said that the black-eyed demons are subservient to higher-ranking and stronger demons, and while they may appear small, they tend to travel in groups ranging from 5 to 100, so keep that in mind. These demons are also said to be incredibly strong, fast, and durable. You want to break their legs? It doesn't bother them. Maybe drive a stake through their heart. Better luck next time. Even automatic projectiles won't stop these guys, and that is because the demons are not really connected to the bodies they possess. They just control them as though draped in an oversized mascot costume. And of course, they are also known to possess telekinetic abilities, and they really enjoy tormenting the living. So if you see one, run. A particular subject of black-eyed demons are the black-eyed young ones, best known for their mischievous and malevolent nature. The black-eyed young ones are paranormal creatures said to inhabit the bodies of specifically young people, likely because 1, that's insanely terrifying, and 2, it's a lot easier to lure people in when you seem like nothing more than a lost young person wandering the road at night or begging on the street corner. But don't think staying inside of your car or never leaving the house will keep you from accidentally running into one of these young-looking demons. No, that would be too easy. In reality, these malevolent little trash creatures are known to be quite bold, approaching and knocking on car windows and doors, and even sometimes walking straight into homes and possibly your bedroom and other buildings despite receiving absolutely no invitation. Generally, you will know you have encountered a little demon before ever seeing their eyes, as they are often said to be accompanied by an almost crippling sense of both fear and dread. So if you're feeling fearful and dreadful right now, look around.
Stories of youngsters with pure black eyes, like the ones Hannah just mentioned, have been told around campfires for decades, but the first written stories may have come about in 1996 from a Texas reporter named Brian Bethel. Bethel had a terrifying encounter in 1996, and the story of this encounter ended up on a message board. The story quickly spread to other early internet forums, and today many view it as a sort of proto-creepypasta, but to this day, Bethel insists that he wasn't making any of it up. He'd been sitting in his car in a parking lot outside a movie theater one night in Abilene, Texas. He was dropping off a check and was using a street light in the parking lot to write it. Just as he was getting ready to drive off though, he suddenly heard a knock on his window. He looked up to see a pair of young boys staring down at him. Through the window he could hear their muffled voices pleading with him to give them a ride. But there was something off. Why were these two boys out alone so late at night? More importantly, why were their eyes pure black? No sclera, no irises, just deep black orbs. Bethel immediately felt this oppressive sense of doom in the pit of his stomach. Without thinking twice, he put his foot on the gas and roared out of the parking lot. He knew something was very, very wrong. He shared his story in private emails to 2 coworkers, but eventually it ended up in the local paper and then the internet. Bethel expected everyone to think he was crazy, and some did, but others began sharing their own stories. Aside from the Brian Bethel account, the next most well-known Black Eyes encounter came from a Reddit post 13 years back with the heading, "Warning to people in Portland, Oregon metro area this Halloween." The Redditor said that his neighbor, who was known for his elaborate Halloween decorations, hadn't put out his usual display. And the neighbor ended up telling him that he planned to keep his house dark this Halloween because of a frightening experience he'd had the year before. The neighbor said that after his brother's family had left, he received a late night visit from 2 teenagers who weren't in costumes, but they did have unusually large irises and dilated pupils. They asked to use his phone, claiming they were lost. The neighbor immediately felt off. Something just didn't seem right about these 2. He thought they might have been on something or were going to try and rob him, so he sent them away and locked the door. Then he stayed up all night, just terrified that they might try to break in. The Redditor listened to what his neighbor said and was immediately reminded of the urban legends of the black-eyed entities. So he mentioned the legend to the neighbor, who had never heard of them before. And later the neighbor returned to the Redditor's house visibly disturbed, saying he found the similarities pretty striking. He'd obviously gone online to read about it himself.
This next story comes from Reddit user Wonder Wookman. I think they probably spelled woman wrong or it was taken. Anyways, it goes as follows. What happened was one night I was in bed and something woke me up, but I wasn't sure what it was. I just knew something forced me to wake up. So at that point I rolled over and looked around my room and it's bathed in this blue light. There was a window in my room, but there's nothing that would cause it to light up blue like that. It was bright enough though that I could make out the details of objects in my room. And on my floor was someone or something crouched down, and it looked like they were maybe playing with a toy. It was hard to tell because their back was to me, but there was definitely a young human crouching there. Thinking it was my stepbrother who came into my room to play with a toy that he had left in there or something, I asked if it was him. I don't remember much after that, but I do remember this thing turned around, still in the crouch position, and when it looked at me, all I saw were completely black eyes and pale white skin. I remember pulling the blankets up over my head because it terrified me so bad, but that's all I remember. I never had an experience like that again, but the house I grew up in was super haunted and my entire family had so many experiences that we've tried to explain, but never could. I don't know about you guys, but in that situation I probably would have given that small little demon a big old roundhouse kick and then run out of the room rather than just throwing a blanket over my head and hoping for the best, but you know, to each their own, I guess.
Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Belphegor. Belphegor is a fallen angel, and after his fall from heaven, he has now become the demon lord, presiding over the sin of sloth. It is said that, as Belphegor served as a lieutenant from hell, he was sent to Earth on a mission by Satan. While he was on Earth, he grew quite fond of Paris, France, and it is said that because of this affinity, he now lurks deep within the catacombs under the city. Belphegor can be invoked by mortals who are wishing to find fame and wealth, usually through as little effort as possible. But these wishes are of course doomed to fail because of the demon's true mission to lure the dreamers into sloth. Through the failure of whatever was provided to the dreamer by Belphegor, he then draws them into procrastination and idle dreaming rather than active production, which then condemns them to a life of failure. Belphegor is also recognized as one of the 7 great kings who rule over hell. In our number 9 spot today we have Burstuk. Burstuk is a Wendish evil god of the forest and is known for his trickery. He is often described as being half man and half goat, but there are some sources which claim he is actually all shadow and doesn't even have a human form at all, and instead is more a spirit of the woods. So here's what dark thing he's got going on. He likes to trick wanderers of the forest into getting lost. Yep, literally just a full-on nightmare. He hangs out in the dark depths of the forest waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Once a wanderer stumbles across his path, he'll play tricks where he changes the path in the woods, or he'll whisper in their ears to frighten them, and he'll lay branches in their way so that they'll trip and fall, and he does this all simply because he just enjoys the suffering of others. Sounds pretty evil to me. In our number 8 spot today we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former seraph who turned into a high-ranking demon. He is one of the princes of hell and also oversees the Order of the Fly. He, Satan, and Lucifer form the triarchy of hell, which makes him one of the supreme monarchs of the underworld. As a seraphim, he was under the archangel Gabriel, but he was one of the very first angels to fall. He is often confused with Satan, and while the two names can technically be interchanged, they're two separate entities, and in some writings, they even disagree at times. He is associated with pride and gluttony, and he has also been held responsible for demonic possessions throughout the years. Unfortunately, flies are a very important thing for him, as it is said that he can take the form of flies. Now his main job is to rule over the fallen angels as well as the demons that are originally from hell. In our number 7 spot today we have Lilith. Lilith is a demon goddess who appears a lot in mythology. Her dark origins start in Sumerian and Babylonian demonology, and she is the picture of the beautiful maiden with a dark spirit. Legend says once she chose a lover, she would never let him go and would give nothing in return. Some people believe that Lilith was actually the first wife of Adam and that the two were created equal, but Adam didn't like that she wasn't obedient to him, so he abandoned her, and this is when God made Eve. This is what is rumored to have turned Lilith into a snake, which then tempted Eve into the apple. After Adam and Eve were then banished from the Garden of Eden, Lilith turned into a demon goddess and vowed to get her revenge on all men. In our number 6 spot today we have Baal. Baal is ranked as the first of the Ars Goetia, which I had to look up because I am not really familiar with a lot of demons and demonology works. If you're like me and aren't exactly up to date on this, as explained by the demonicparadisefandom.com, quote, the Ars Goetia, also known as the 72 Pillars, is a group comprised of 72 demons with exemplary strength and their own legions. They are listed in the grimoire Lesser Key of Solomon. Okay. Cool. So Baal is the first on that list, and he is the principal king of hell. It is said that he governs somewhere from 66 to 250 legions of demons and spirits, so he's clearly a workaholic. In grimoire tradition, it is said that Baal appears in the form of a man, a cat, a toad, or different combinations of those, with the appearance of a king or soldier, but with the heads of these creatures, and on a set of spider legs. So I'm just saying, the guy's not easy to miss. I feel like it's pretty clear. In our number 5 spot today we have Asmodeus. Asmodeus is the king of demon and earthly spirits and is referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell. He also represents one of the 7 deadly sins, lust. Before becoming a demon in his former life, he was an angel who was known as Asmodel, the angel of April and patience who rules the zodiac sign Taurus. But of course, we're here to talk about his demon form, which is said to appear either as a ruthless, brutal monster or as a kind of mischievous demon that is playful and quick thinking. Honestly, I'm not sure which form would be worse to encounter. The monster would be scary, but a little annoying demon would also be the worst. For the most terrifying exit I've ever heard of, it is said that Asmodeus will cut himself into pieces and immediately after disappear. In our number 4 spot today we have Azazel. Azazel is one of the chief governors of the Grigori, which is a group of fallen angels who married female mortals, which then produced the Nephilim, which are these scary giant creatures that ate mortals. In the beginning, Azazel started as an eater of sins, but the more sins he consumed, the hungrier he became, and this led to him not being satiated by the sins he was receiving. The reason he was cast from heaven is because he taught men how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, which then led to humans being corrupted and thinking that they were invincible. It is said that the humans went so far that they were planning to raid heaven, and this is when God told Raphael to bind Azazel's hands and feet, open up a hole in the desert, and toss him in, casting him into darkness. This worked, and for a long time Azazel remained in prison. It was so bad that the jagged rocks near him tore his physical body away, and this left him as a mass of darkness covered in mouths and eyes. Later freed by Lucifer, he went on to to join the demons in hell. In our number 3 spot today we have Axeman. It's weird, she used to work here. Different Axeman. Axeman is the great Marquis of Hell, and he is the 7th of the demons in the Ars Goetia. It is said that he is in charge of governing 40 different legions of demons, but his favorite thing to do with humans is making them fall in love with each other. He is also known to settle debates, and you might be sitting there thinking that this guy actually sounds pretty cool and nice, but despite all of these cool and nice things he enjoys, he is anything but nice. Just like he can make people fall in love, he can also do the exact opposite as well. He can cause people to turn against each other and can even will someone to harm the innocent, which is just terrifying. To make that thought slightly less horrifying, it is said that he usually doesn't do this for no reason, and it tends to only happen when he is attacked or if someone is standing in his way of completing a mission. Still not good, but I suppose that's better than just random acts of violence. It is said that Axeman appears as a wolf with a snake's tail and that he possesses the ability to breathe fire. Or he might appear as a man with dog teeth who is inside of a raven. I don't know. Ask him about that, not me. In our number 2 spot today we have Hades. We are not talking about the Unreal game, instead we are talking about the dad that you gotta fight in it. Hades is the king of the underworld and the god of the dead, and I'm not sure if it gets any darker than that. It was believed that just by speaking his name he would have the power to bring you to the underworld, so people tried to avoid his name like it was Voldemort. Hades was sure to never let any souls that entered the underworld escape, and he would punish anyone who tried, or anyone who tried to save someone in the underworld. One of his darkest myths is in reference to the time he kidnapped Persephone. He opened up the earth where she was picking flowers and he kept her in the underworld. Persephone's mother, Demeter, was of course really unhappy about this and did everything she could to get her back. Hades finally agreed to let her go, but of course there's always a twist with these guys. He gives her a pomegranate seed as a parting gift, which she eats. Little does she know, if you eat food from the underworld, it binds you to it. So now she is bound to Hades, and basically the story ends off with her being allowed to live a few months of the year on Earth, but the rest of the time she's stuck in the underworld. So yeah, Hades is just out there kidnapping people. Really uncool. In our number 1 spot today we have Lamashtu. Lamashtu is a demon, monster, malevolent goddess, or demigoddess who comes from Mesopotamian mythology, and she certainly is terrible. Her name means she who erases, and this is because she would prey on women during childbirth and wait for them to be breastfeeding their new baby so she could kidnap the newborn and eat its flesh. I honestly don't know if it gets any darker than that. She was also known to disturb sleep and cause nightmares, as one of her less worse qualities is that she would also be known to harm the environment, bound the muscle of men, and would bring sickness and disease. Mothers who were expecting children would wear an amulet that depicted her in order to protect their pregnancy from her. Sometimes people would even leave offerings to keep her appeased, which would always be small, feminine objects. There are some cultures where Lamashtu was regarded as a guardian, but I'm sure they didn't hear the whole eating babies thing, or else I feel like they might have changed their minds.
Apparently there are a good number of black-eyed sightings in Cannock Chase in Staffordshire, England, for some reason. Just in 2022, a story came out in the Staffordshire News about a young couple who had a traumatizing encounter while camping. It was around midnight when they started to hear what sounded like a young girl giggling outside their tent. They unzipped it and turned on their flashlights to see what the hell was going on, and spotted a small girl running from tree to tree, hiding behind them and intermittently poking her head out to peer at them. Then she, or it, walked out into a clearing right in front of them and just stared, continuing to giggle. Her eyes were nothing but black. The girlfriend claimed that it, quote, moved in ways humans simply can't move. It was like it could teleport from one place to another when it was moving around and hiding behind the trees, end quote. Then the thing bent down, adjusted its shoe, and skipped down a path leading deeper into the woods. The couple just huddled in their tent, terrified, waiting for the sun to rise.
This next story comes from Reddit user Bailey Diane. It goes like this. I was working in an office that did mainly business-to-business sales. Since we weren't in a great part of town and we weren't exactly open to the public, I kept the door to our office locked. The only way to work the lock was with a key from either side. I had stepped outside to go on a sales call, but before I did, I looked out the window and there were two young boys walking about a block away from me. No big deal. I could easily be safely to my car before they reached where I was, but before I knew it, it, the young men were much closer than they should have been. It was like they had walked a city block in a split second. My fight or flight kicked in. I had no reason to be afraid, but I felt a deep fear. So I went back inside and locked the door. I'm not even sure how to describe the fear I felt that led me to rush back inside though. All of a sudden, these young men started banging on the door. Only one of the two of them spoke. He said, "We need a phone, let us in." I yelled no through the door, but he kept banging on the glass so hard that it was vibrating. I threatened to call the cops, but they kept banging and begging to use the phone. So finally I got brave enough to get a better look at them so I could give a description to the police, and their eyes were pitch black. I'm not super religious, but in the moment, for some reason, I just yelled, "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave," and they disappeared. Just vanished. End of story. That sounds terrifying. I mean, as if young people weren't already intimidating enough. You go ahead and throw some demon in there, and you've got enough nightmare fuel to last you all year.
From Reddit user Baby Milk Cow comes the story of the demon in the closet. Not my story, but my dad's. He grew up with a single mom and 4 other siblings in southeast Texas on the border of Louisiana. He says he and his brother were sleeping on the couch in their living room, and they both woke up to a black-eyed youngster standing in the doorway of their closet. He said the thing looked older than them by a little, had black eyes and orange hair, and had a slight glow to him, like he was under his own spotlight. He said he and his brother tried to scream, but nothing would come out. The thing just disappeared after that. The reason everyone knows this is true? Well, a couple months ago, me, my mom, and my dad were at my grandma's house, and my uncle was watching a documentary on black-eyed demons. When my dad brought up what had happened to them all those years ago, my uncle started tearing up and just kept repeating, "Man, you seen that too? I thought it was crazy. I can't believe you seen him too." My uncle has a history with illicit substances and mental health problems, and for over 50 years he assumed what he saw was fake and just his mind playing tricks on him. It's sad because we think that this situation shook him up so badly he started using as a teen to cope with the thought that he may have been crazy. They were so scared they just never brought it up ever again after that, but my dad always told my mom that story ever since they started dating. My grandma, who was sitting there listening to them talk about what happened, just said, "Oh, there was something in that house, Lord."
This next story comes from Reddit user LogDog1201. When I was about 16, I had started developing a sleep paralysis phenomenon. It happened every other night or so. Most times when I woke up in an episode, it didn't feel right. Something felt odd every time. I could see my room and still hear my fan, but something felt like it was almost watching me. I thought it was normal paranoia, as most say you experience in sleep paralysis, but the 4th time I experienced it, there was a young person-looking figure sitting at the edge of my bed. It turned towards me and just stared with its pitch black eyes. I was freaking out a lot, and it's worse because you can't scream or move, just watch. The young creature then stood up, got off my bed, and walked right through my wall towards my sister's room. I fell asleep shortly after that, but I brought this encounter up to my sister a year later or so, only for her to say that she saw a young person with no eyes in front of her closet doorway, just staring at her. End of story. I have to say, if my sibling told me they saw a literal demon crawl through their wall and into my room and all they did was go to sleep, I would be livid. They would literally never hear the end of it, ever. Luckily everyone's okay, but still, I'd be pissed.
This final tale is one I'm going to call the Apple. It's been floating around the internet for years now, and it has this perfect urban legend type of charm about it. So a woman in Texas is puttering around the house when she hears her doorbell ring. She answers the door and finds 2 youngsters standing on her doorstep. One is holding an apple. She's immediately taken aback by the fact that, yes, they both have pure black eyes. They ask the woman if she can let them in. Now, this is already very odd, but even stranger, she's out in a very rural area, basically in the middle of nowhere. Just where exactly did these 2 come from? Then this deep sense of dread starts to fill the air when one of the black-eyed visitors asks the woman, "Can I at least have some ketchup for my apple?" The woman declines and shuts the door, immediately locking it. That's like something an alien would ask. they have an apple. They know that ketchup is a thing, so they combine the two in a weird way. That's kind of what stuck out to me about that story. I'd be weirded out too.
In our number 5 spot today, we have Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd is a Canadian actor and comedian who is perhaps best known for his work on Saturday Night Live and in films such as The Blues Brothers and, I don't know, Ghostbusters. Aykroyd has a long-standing interest in the paranormal, which is exactly where his inspirations for the movie came from, and he is claimed to have had multiple ghostly encounters over the years. One of Dan's most famous ghost encounters occurred when he was living in a house in upstate New York that was reportedly haunted by the ghost of a former resident. Aykroyd has claimed that he saw the ghost on multiple occasions and that it even communicated with him through telepathy. Aykroyd's experiences with the ghost in his house reportedly inspired him to write the screenplay for the hit movie Ghostbusters, which centers around a team of paranormal investigators who capture ghosts in New York City. As if you didn't already know that. Aykroyd's interest in the paranormal has continued throughout his life, and he has been involved in numerous investigations and documentaries related to the subject. In our number 4 spot today, we have Anneliese Michel. Anneliese was a German woman who became the subject of a controversial case of alleged demonic possession. Anneliese was born in 1952 and began experiencing seizures and other symptoms of mental illness when she was young. Her family believed that she was possessed by demons and sought the help of Catholic priests to perform exorcisms on her. Over the course of several years, Anneliese underwent a series of exorcisms that were recorded on audio tapes. The tapes of Anneliese's exorcisms are disturbing and very graphic, with her screaming, growling, and speaking in multiple voices. Her physical condition deteriorated over time, and she eventually died of malnutrition and dehydration in 1976. Anneliese's case has been the subject of much debate and a lot of controversy. Some people believe that she was truly possessed by demons, while others argue that she was suffering from mental illness and was not given the proper medical care that she needed. The case has been the subject of books, documentaries, and films, and it continues to be a source of fascination and horror for many people. And many people are at least somewhat familiar with this story since it was the basis for the famous horror movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. In our number 3 spot today, we have Emma Stone. Emma is an A-list actor who's appeared in numerous films, including La La Land, Easy A, and The Amazing Spider-Man. And not only this, but she has also shared a story about a ghostly encounter she had while staying in a hotel in Hawaii. According to Emma, she was staying at a historic hotel on the island of Kauai when she woke up in the middle of the night to find a ghostly figure standing at the foot of her bed. The figure was described as a young girl, and Stone said she felt a sense of calm and warmth in its presence. Stone said that she didn't feel scared or threatened by the ghost, and that the experience actually made her feel more connected to the history and culture of Hawaii. She later learned that the hotel was said to be haunted by the ghost of a young girl who had passed in the building many years ago. Emma's encounter with the ghost has been widely reported in the media, and it has helped to fuel her reputation as a believer in the paranormal. In our number 2 spot today, we have Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was quite the television personality, known for her sharp wit and humor, as well as her blunt and often controversial opinions. Rivers claimed to have had a ghostly encounter in her New York City apartment that left her feeling shaken up. According to Rivers, she was in her bedroom when she saw the ghost of a woman standing at the end of her bed. The ghost was described as wearing a hat and a fur coat and had a sad expression on her face. Rivers said that the ghost seemed to be trying to communicate with her, but she couldn't understand what it was saying. Rivers claimed that the ghostly encounter left her feeling spooked and that she slept with the lights on for several nights afterward. She later learned that a woman had died in the apartment many years before, and she speculated that the ghost she saw was that woman's spirit. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Matthew McConaughey. I'll be honest, Matthew was someone I didn't expect to put on this list because he didn't strike me as a ghost believer, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Matthew McConaughey is an actor and producer known for his roles in films such as Dallas Buyers Club, True Detective, Interstellar, the list goes on. He is a great actor. In his memoir, Green Lights, McConaughey shares a story about a paranormal experience he had while living in Hollywood. According to him, he was home alone one night when he heard a sound coming from the hallway. He got up to investigate and saw a ghostly figure walking down the hall towards him. The figure was described as a small girl wearing a pink dress, and McConaughey said that she didn't really seem very threatening, but rather curious. Matthew said that the ghostly encounter left him feeling unnerved, and that he struggled to make sense of what had happened. He later learned that the house he was living in had a history of paranormal activity, and he speculated that the ghost he saw was the spirit of a young girl who had passed in the house many years before. Matthew's story about his ghostly encounter encounter has definitely only added to his reputation as enigmatic and unpredictable personality.
Number 5. The Nobleman. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed as a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret and gruesome second life, where he enjoyed torment and ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree, during which he may have ended the lives of over 140 victims. During his trial, both de Rais and several of his servants' accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Now, besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by repeatedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 4. Devil Made Me Do It. Now this story is more about accidentally getting possessed rather than summoning a demon, but I digress. Ed and Lorraine Warren helped exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. Now David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterward. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. Now they did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. Now during his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Now Arnie Johnson was dating David's sister and was present for the exorcisms. In a desperate attempt to help David, Arnie coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in David's exorcism. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, after his girlfriend Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. Now the jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5. Number 3. The Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written in Latin. The Codex Gigas is a Bible written in a monastery in Bohemia, modern-day Czech Republic. It is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say a whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Yes, this is the largest illustrated medieval manuscript in the world, with a length of 36 inches, a width of 20 inches, and a total back-to-back thickness of almost 9 inches. Wow. Now the page next to the illustration contains a full depiction of the kingdom of heaven, and there's lots of stories about this book, most likely stemming from the large portrait of the devil. According to the legend, the codex was written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now in order to try to escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Now Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Now some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. Number 2. No more summoning. When this user was asked if they've ever summoned a demon, they said, "Have done it, I don't do it anymore." He didn't have a physical body. Most summonings don't include actual physical forms. We had a mental conversation, and I used ghost writing to keep track of the convo. After the ritual, you're usually very drained of energy, and it's easy to forget details, so documenting is always a good choice. He was very polite, friendly, and even bantered with me. After around an hour of talk, I ended the session, and we never had any problems again. I contacted that specific demon one other time before stopping. Life is easier without demons. And coming in at number 1 is a conversation. This online user said, "I spoke to 6 demons over 2 nights. I had no agenda in speaking to these demons. I didn't want to enlist their help with something or even to form a working relationship with them. I just wanted to meet them and interview them. I realized that they are not called demons for nothing. They are chaotic energies who exist to screw things up and various unique ways, and they are tricky. Just talking to them was a bit exhausting. At no point did I feel genuinely threatened, but I did feel unsettled or uncomfortable. If you decide to speak to them, keep your guard up. Don't let yourself say deal as a figure of speech, as one tried to make me do. Watch your words and watch their words too. I started mixing up who was saying what as I was writing the conversation down, which had never happened before, so I realized they were messing with me. I also made a strange Freudian slip, such as almost writing friends hurt each other instead friends trust each other. I noticed when these things happen. I told the spirits, hey, stop doing that, call them out on whatever they try to pull, and don't let them in, don't give them anything.
In our number 5 spot today we have Lilith. Lilith is a demon goddess who appears a lot in mythology. Her dark origins start in Sumerian and Babylonian demonology, and she is the picture of a beautiful maiden with a very dark spirit. Legend says once she chose a lover, she would never let him go and would give nothing in return. Some people believe that Lilith was actually the first wife of Adam and that the two were created equal, but Adam didn't like that she wasn't obedient to him, so he abandoned her, and this is when God made Eve. This is what is rumored to have turned Lilith into a snake, which then tempted Eve into the apple. After Adam and Eve were then banished from the Garden of Eden, Lilith turned into a demon goddess and vowed to get her revenge on all men. In our number 4 spot today we have the Jorogumo. This creature, according to lore, is said to be a yokai that is half woman, half spider. She has the ability to appear as a beautiful human in order to lure unsuspecting men so that she can devour them like a black widow. Legend has it that one day a young samurai encountered an alluringly gorgeous woman on the streets. Many people would have been fooled by her appearance, but the samurai was not so naive. He saw through the disguise and immediately drew his sword, but he was only able to injure her before she was able to scurry away. He followed the trail of scarlet that was left by her blood, and it led him to an old abandoned house. When he peered inside, he saw dozens of bodies that were bound in spider silk. In our number 3 spot today we have the demonic animal. One more story from the Warrens. This one came straight from Ed himself. He told this story when he was trying to set an example of how things of the occult and the supernatural certainly are not for amateurs or for the faint of heart. He used this story of a girl who was playing with a Ouija board. You know, how all good supernatural stories start. She asked for proof of a spirit presence and she got a lot more than she bargained for. Ed Warren said, quote, she got this proof with 2 days and 2 nights of hell. Apparently it started off with a manifestation of sort of an animal form walking on her bed. This then turned physical, and whatever this entity was left her with bruises. It is said that thankfully the mother in the home saw what was happening and she took action. She not only prayed by the girl's bedside, but she also sprinkled holy water. There was a 2-day vigil in which everyone tried to rid the girl of this demonic presence that she had summoned, and thankfully it worked. In our number 2 spot today we have Tukolshi. This creature originated in South Africa and it appears in Zulu mythology. It is said that this creature is quite short but very frightening. What it lacks in height it makes up for in a vertical better than Michael Jordan in his prime. Legend has it that this creature likes to jump on people's chests at night while they are sleeping so that it can steal their breath away. Aside from the whole jumping thing, it is said that this creature is also quite fast, and one kind of random fact is that it apparently loves curdled milk, which is disgusting. So while he's stealing your breath, I guess you just have to sit there smelling his hot curdled milk breath. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend. There is a way to protect yourself against him, and that is by putting your bed on high bricks. This is because if the bed is raised too high, then this malevolent being won't be able to just jump up on your chest to complete its breath-stealing work. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Hades. Hades is the king of the underworld and the god of the dead, and I'm not sure if it gets any darker than that. It was believed that just by speaking his name, he would have the power to bring you to the underworld, so people tried to avoid his name like it was Voldemort. Hades was sure to never let any souls that entered the underworld escape, and he would punish anyone who tried, or anyone who tried to save someone in the underworld. One of the darkest myths in reference to him is the time he kidnapped Persephone. He opened up the earth where she was picking flowers and kept her in the underworld. Persephone's mother Demeter was of course really unhappy about this and did everything that she could to get her back. Hades finally agreed to let her go, but of course there's always a twist with these guys. He gave her a pomegranate seed as a parting gift, which she ate. Little did she know, if you eat food from the underworld, it binds you to it, so now she is bound to Hades, and basically the story just ends off with her being allowed to live a few months of the year on Earth, but the rest of the time she was stuck in the underworld. So yeah, Hades is just out there kidnapping people, which is super uncool. Don't summon him with a Ouija board. Unless you want to get kidnapped. In our number 5 spot today, we have Michael Jackson. Definitely one of the celebrities who has had the most connections to the occult. Some fans and theorists believe that Jackson's success, talent, and enduring popularity could not be attributed solely to his hard work and dedication, but rather to a supernatural pact that he had made. One of the most persistent rumors surrounding Jackson's supposed deal with the devil was that he made the pact at the age of 12. According to this rumor, Jackson traded his soul to achieve success in the music industry. Others have pointed to Jackson's fascination with the occult and his interest in spiritual practices as evidence of his involvement in the dark arts. Some also cite his dramatic physical transformations as proof of his alleged deal with the devil. At the end of the day, did Michael Jackson have a deal with the devil? Well, I guess I'll just let you decide for yourself. It's my way of saying no, none of these people did, because the devil doesn't exist. In our number 4 spot today, we have Aleister Crowley. This man is quite well known for being the leader of an occult group, and this really does stem back even into his childhood. It is said that quite early on, Aleister started calling himself the Beast and the Antichrist, and he is even quoted as saying that God and Satan fought over his soul. In one of his books, he wrote, quote, "I was in the death struggle with self. God and Satan fought for my soul those 3 long hours. God conquered. Now, I have only one doubt left. Which of the twain was God?" Many people believe that perhaps he made a deal with Satan, but it is possible that these are just rumblings based on Aleister's teachings and beliefs. In our number 3 spot today, we have Beyonce. Queen Bee, an absolute living legend. Like her husband though, who we spoke about on part 1, Beyonce has also been accused of being a member of the Illuminati and selling her soul for fame and fortune. The claim that Beyonce sold her soul is a conspiracy theory that has been circulating online for several years. However, there is no evidence to support this claim. Just don't want the bee people to come for me. The belief that Beyonce sold her soul likely stems from her success, which some people may find hard to believe without a supernatural explanation. I do understand that one. I mean, did you see Homecoming? Additionally, her music and performances often incorporate religious and spiritual imagery, which may further fuel the rumors. Also forgot to include that people think she's a part of the Illuminati. Okay, that's important. People think that she is directly related to a satanic organization. The success of talented and hardworking individuals like Beyonce is typically the result of dedication, perseverance, and talent, but some people just swear it's soul selling. In our number 2 spot today, we have Theophilus of Adna. For this one, we are taking it back a little bit, all the way to 538 AD. Theophilus of Adna was a cleric in the Roman Catholic Church. So basically, one day he was elected to become the new bishop, but he ended up denying the offer, as it is said that he wanted a more priestly sort of position instead of one with all of that power and responsibility. It is said that he wanted the position of archdeacon, which would have seen him controlling where the donation money went. So apparently, in passing on this bishop position, he thought that if he gave this bishop position to his rival, then his rival should at least be grateful enough to give him the position he wanted. But of course, this did not happen. The new bishop gave away the seat that Theophilus wanted and instead gave him the position of being a humble cleric. This made Theo super angry, and this is when he thought that maybe the church isn't as holy as he once thought they were. This is when he decided to summon the help of Satan. He ended up signing a contract with Satan in his own blood. He denounced Jesus and the Virgin Mary, and it is said that with the help of Satan, he was once again voted into the bishop position, and this time he accepted. At this point in time, it is said that he felt so guilty he confessed to this deal with the devil, and the priest who he confessed to decided that they should burn the blood-signed contract. For a second, Theo looked up, but then suddenly he collapsed and died. Many people believe that it was because he had broken his contract. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Jonathan Moulton. Jonathan is a man who was born in 1726, and he was known for his military career. He served in King George's War as well as in the French and Indian Wars, but after his service is where the story really starts. Basically, after his time fighting was over, he went on to become one of New England's wealthiest men. This caused heads to swivel and rumors to swirl because this wasn't something that was normally seen. This all gave way for the rumor that Jonathan had struck his luck of fortune because he was actually working with the devil. People began to say that for financial gain, he in turn gave his eternal devotion and even his soul over to the devil. The devil would visit him every month in order to fill up his boot with gold. You know what what happens with things like this though, people get greedy. It is said that despite this lavish lifestyle he was already living, he wanted more, and this led to him making the mistake of trying to trick the devil. He cut a hole in the floor above his basement and placed a boot over it, which also had a hole in the heel. Of course he did this so that when the devil came with the gold, he'd get a whole basement full rather than just a boot. But the devil certainly caught on. From there it is said that he burned down Jonathan's house along with all of the gold that lay inside.
At our number 5 spot is the jinn. These entities are known to enter a victim's room, suddenly pouncing on them and pressing down with all their weight, rendering the person completely immobile. To make matters worse, they often attempt to strangle their helpless victims. Getting rid of a jinn isn't a walk in the park. The solution typically involves prayer to Allah, seeking divine intervention to banish these demonic entities. But there are variations of the story that depict the jinn wearing a hat, and according to some accounts, the solution typically involves prayer to Allah, seeking divine intervention to banish these demonic entities, but there are variations of the story that depict the jinn wearing a hat, and according to some accounts, if you manage to seize the hat from the creature, you gain control over it. But attempting to snatch a hat from a supernatural being doesn't sound like the safest bet, and there's little evidence of this ever working. Phenomenon of sleep paralysis is unsettling, and that this is definitely kind of an attempt at an explanation for that. Anyway, the jinn often associated with these nightmarish experiences in Turkish folklore. Next on the list we have Ammit. Now, while she's not a demon in the traditional sense, she is a figure in Egyptian mythology associated with the afterlife, and what this entity does is pretty horrific. Ammit, translated to devourer of the dead, is depicted as a fearsome creature with a combination of animal features: the head of a crocodile, the front legs of a lion, and the hind legs of a hippopotamus, the 3 most prominent man-eating animals that were known to ancient Egyptians. Ammit's role is judgment of the dead, particularly during the weighing of the heart ceremony. In the afterlife, the hearts of the deceased were weighed against the feather of Mat, the goddess of truth and justice. If a person's heart was found to be heavier than the feather, it indicated a life filled with wrongdoing and sin, and this is where Ammit came into play. She stood by, ready to devour those deemed unworthy. If your heart was consumed by her, it meant eternal damnation, with your soul ceasing to exist for eternity. I'm gonna guess that the possibility of dying and then being met with a crocodile, hippo, lion monster who may eat you whole probably motivated a number of people to try not to be pricks during their lifetime. Number 3, Lamashtu. Lamashtu comes from Mesopotamian mythology. She's a demon goddess often depicted with a lion's head and donkey-like teeth, the bird-like feet, and a tangled mess of hair. Lamashtu's primary claim to infamy is her malevolent activities with, again, pregnant women and infants as her prime targets. She's known to prowl around, lurking for opportunities to wreak havoc. This includes abducting newborns and committing gruesome acts like sucking their blood, or even nursing them herself sometimes, which is also an unsettling image. Her reign of terror doesn't stop there, though. She's also associated with bringing diseases, causing nightmares, polluting water, all great stuff, just causing general misery wherever she goes. In ancient Mesopotamia, Lamashtu was anything but popular, and people went to great lengths to protect themselves from her evil. They crafted amulets and chanted incantations to safeguard mothers and their babies from falling victim to her. And at number 2, we have Papa Bawa. This is an interesting one because it's actually a demonic creature that people have reported encounters with in relatively recent years. It's kind of in that cryptid territory. This demonic entity originates from the Tanzanian island of Pemba. Encounters with this being have been documented as far back as 1965, but it was in 1995 that reports of its activities gained more widespread attention. So, what exactly is the Papa Bawa? Describing its appearance isn't super straightforward, as it's said to take on a number of forms. It can resemble a bat, a human, or a winged. It's some kind of combination of a winged creature, sometimes with a single eye positioned in the center of its head. The creature is notorious for targeting men, often attacking them during the night. But it doesn't stop at physical attacks. It's also said to have the ability to possess its victims. Strangely, the Papabawa has a peculiar method of spreading fear. After an encounter, it compels its victims to share their experience with others, warning that it will return if they remain silent. And this demand has contributed to the legend's impact on the collective psyche. In 2007, a series of sightings and attacks were reported to this creature, causing a wave of fear among the local population. Many men started staying awake at night. Some even slept in groups in order to help protect themselves from it. And we're closing out the list with the wendigo. Wendigo is a creature from North American indigenous folklore. They're described as horrifying, emaciated beings with decaying skin stretched tightly over this skeletal frame. And their appearance alone is nightmarish enough, and it's just as horrifying as it looks, with an insatiable hunger for human flesh, showing no mercy to its victims. The legend says that those who taste human flesh may become possessed by the wendigo spirit, transferring it into themselves. And this concept of a malevolent force taking over someone's body, turning them into something dark, driving them to become cannibals, a pretty unsettling idea. Wendigo stories are often linked to the harsh realities of surviving in the northern wilderness during brutal winters, where scarcity of food has been known to push people to extremes, and it's in these times of desperation where the wendigo is said to emerge. And it's in these times of desperation where the wendigo emerges, compelling people to take a bite out of their best friend or even their own family.
Number 5. TikTok doctor. Once, a man who was pronounced dead by his doctor after being injured said that rather than seeing a bright light and the feeling of coming home, he instead saw hell itself and met the devil. A doctor took to TikTok to explain that he encountered a young man in his early 20s who had been stabbed in the heart after being involved in a deal that went wrong. Not willing to let the man die, medical staff took the victim into surgery, kept him from losing too much blood, and treated the wound in his heart. The doctor remembers the man waking up 4 hours later and crying, claiming that he went straight down to hell and looked straight in the eyes of the devil. The man said he could see the doctors working to save his life, and having never prayed before, gave it a try, at which point an angel pulled him back up out of hell. Remembering how clear the man had been, the doctor said it was the most amazing experience because he was legit. I mean, nobody makes up an experience like that. The last I heard, he's completely changed his life, he gave his life to God, and I still, to this day, the look in his eyes when he woke up, the terror, I'm absolutely convinced he did meet the devil. Number 4. Working for the devil. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret, gruesome second life where he enjoyed ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree in which he may have ended the lives of over 140 victims. During his trial, both de Rais and several of his servants/accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by reportedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 3. God wanted her to see hell. Josefa Menendez was a young Spanish sister who had a short religious life of great suffering and experienced many revelations throughout her life. More than once she was taken to hell to witness and feel the suffering firsthand. Sister Josefa was reluctant to write on the subject of hell, and did so only to conform to her Lord's wishes. She wrote about her experiences in her journal, and she described it as the greatest torment of hell, namely the soul's inability to love. She wrote, "One of these damned souls cried out, 'This is my torture that I want to love and cannot. There is nothing left me but hatred and despair. If one of us could so much as make a single act of love, but we cannot, we live on hatred." As mentioned, she went to hell multiple times, but one time she saw the devil. She wrote, "Souls were crying out and the devil answered, 'Insinuate yourselves by including carelessness in them, but keep in the background so that you are not found out. Tempt these others into ambition, into self-interest, to acquiring wealth without working, whether it be lawful or not. That entry was from February 3rd, 1923. She visited hell many times after that, but didn't report on seeing the devil again. And that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 2. In a coma. Will Carroll is a drummer who has been in the band Death Angel since 2009 and has provided the drum tracks for their last 4 studio albums. After spending nearly 2 weeks in a coma fighting Will revealed that during his battle with the virus, he saw the afterlife, where he would be sent to hell and meet Satan. The illness left him in a critical state where he was put on a ventilator while lying unconscious in a California Pacific Medical Center hospital bed for 12 days before recovering. He said that the devil would punish him for the deadly sin of sloth. The musician said Satan would transform him into a creature similar to that of Star Wars' Jabba the Hutt, and that he would vomit blood until he ultimately had a heart attack. Will told the San Francisco Chronicle that what he went through allowed him to change some of his typical lifestyle habits, including his once heavy alcohol and illegal substance use. I'm also going to listen to satanic metal though, he joked, but he later admitted that after beating COVID-19, he doesn't think Satan's quite as cool as he used to. And coming up at number 1, The Devil Made Me Do It. Sound familiar? It's because the third Conjuring movie has the same title. This film is inspired by the real events that took place with Arnie Johnson. Ed and Lorraine Warren were helping exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. They did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. During his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Arnie then coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in one of David's exorcisms. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, his and his girlfriend's Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, so Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial, where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5.
In our number 5 spot today, we have Niccolo Paganini. Niccolo was a professional violinist who was born in 1782. His parents began to send him to lessons when he was just 5 years old, and by age 15 he was already touring the world because he was so talented. What's interesting about Niccolo and his story, other than his obvious musical genius however, is the rumors surrounding his talent and subsequent recognition. According to some, people believe that his own mother summoned the devil in order for her son to be the extreme talent that he was. There are many modern diagnoses that could potentially explain some of what made Niccolo so talented, and I mean, we all know quite well that sometimes people are just born with extreme talent, but of course, in the early 1800s, people and their imagination certainly ran wild. The final reason why people believe Niccolo may have made a deal with the devil is because shortly before his death, Niccolo was quite sick. The doctors had a feeling he was nearing death, so they sent in a priest to pray over him. When Niccolo first saw the priest, it is said that he freaked out and sent the priest away. Many people believe that him pushing the priest away was only a confirmation of the fact that he was working with the devil. In our number 4 spot today, we have Giuseppe Tartini. Okay, so this story is one that is kind of similar to Niccolo's, but even more strange. Giuseppe was an Italian violinist and composer who lived during the 1700s. He went on to compose a song called The Devil's Trill Sonata, and not only this, but he also claimed to wake up one night to find Satan sitting on the edge of his bed playing the violin. It seems as though the devil really likes violins, apparently. What's extremely curious is after this alleged encounter, it is said that Giuseppe's violin skills hit heights never seen before. He was able to suddenly play extremely complicated trills that are impossible for most musicians, and apparently even today the sonata is too difficult for many musicians to play, which is why people believe that perhaps this story really was true. In our number 3 spot today, we have Jack Parsons. Jack was a man who was born just a few weeks prior to the Wright brothers flying the first airplane, and being born at a time like this had him growing up dreaming of and reading sci-fi novels about rocket ships taking people to space. It is said that this love of rocket ships and these dreams of going to space are what led to him summoning the devil in order to make a deal. Jack wanted to sell his soul in exchange for a rocket ship. This deal didn't end up working, but Jack continued to study science as he grew older. Later in life, he stumbled upon the teachings of Aleister Crowley and tried his hand at summoning things again. This time he tried to summon a goddess by the name of Babylon that was said to possibly help men get to the moon one day. Technically, in some ways, it worked, because Jack Parsons ended up helping create the jet fuel that is said to still be used today. Maybe it was his original deal with the devil, maybe it was the goddess, or maybe it was just good old passion and drive that did it. Guess that all depends on what you believe. In our number 2 spot today, we have Christoph Heisman. Back in 1677, Christoph was an artist who was working on a castle in Austria. He was so talented at his job that he had been commissioned by the nobles to do this work. There were rumblings about how he may have sold his soul to the devil, but no one was sure of it until it was said that Christoph confessed. He said he had 9 years prior and that he regretted it very much now and actually wanted an exorcism. They demanded to know if he was a practicing witch, but in the end it was decided that he was not, and that instead the devil just had a very strong hold on him. The local priest began giving Christoph exorcisms, and during these sessions, Christoph explained that he had these intense visions where he was coming face to face with the devil, who was in the form of a dragon. The dragon was holding the contract that held Christoph's soul, and this is when he was able to rip it out of the dragon's talons. When he woke up, it seemed as though he was cured. After this, he began painting pictures of the devil, and he even painted a story with multiple panels that told the story of how he sold his soul and how they helped him to get it back. In our number 1 spot today, we have Antoine Rose. This woman from the 15th century is often credited with our modern day image of a witch riding a broomstick. She became known as the Witch of Savoy, and she is said to have confessed to regularly meeting with the devil. I mean, let's be honest, history doesn't exactly have a good record with those accused of witchcraft, so it isn't quite clear if this deal with the devil was real, or if perhaps Antoine could just add 1 + 1 and then suddenly she was accused of being a witch and had to find a way to try and defend herself. Legend goes that she was in a position where she was in dire need of money, and when she asked her neighbors for help, they led her to a group of people who convinced her to ask the devil for help. When the devil appeared, he agreed to help, of course, in exchange for her rejection of God and her promise to worship him. Story has it that she said the devil had a low, raspy voice when he appeared to her in human form, and she also apparently said that she was quite afraid of him. Can we really blame her? In our number 5 spot today, we have the Kabiri Mysteries. The Kabiri Mysteries refer to a set of ancient Greek religious practices and rituals associated with the Kabiri deities, a group of enigmatic gods worshipped in various regions of Greece, particularly on the island of Samothrace. The mysteries involved secretive initiation ceremonies that were performed exclusively by the initiated members of the cult and were believed to impart special knowledge and spiritual power to the participants. It's one of the most secretive religious groups in history, and the exact nature of the group remains the subject of intense debate among scholars because there is so little information to go on. It is generally believed that the cult was closely connected to the cults of Demeter and Persephone, and that the initiation rites involved elements of mysticism, fertility rites, and underworld symbolism. This mystery group exerted a significant influence on the development of Greek religion and culture, and were celebrated by various communities throughout the Hellenistic world. Despite the mystery that shrouds them, the Kabiri Mysteries continues to fascinate scholars and enthusiasts alike, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the ancient religious practices of Greece. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Church of Satan. The Church of Satan is a religious organization founded in 1966 by Anton LaVey. Despite its name, the Church of Satan does not worship Satan as a deity, but rather advocates for individualism, self-indulgence, and rational thinking. LaVey created the Church of Satan as a reaction to what he saw as the hypocrisy of mainstream religion and the repressive nature of society at the time. The Church of Satan's philosophy is centered around the concept that Satan is a symbol of rebellion and individual freedom. Members believe in indulging in their desires and pursuing their own happiness as long as it doesn't harm others. The church also promotes the idea of magic as a tool for self-improvement and self-realization. Heard that's where the demon summoning comes in. Demons aren't all bad, some can be helpful, you just need to know what you're doing. Of course, with a name like the Church of Satan, you're gonna face some controversy, and this group certainly has received its fair share of criticism over the years, with many accusing it of promoting evil and immorality. The organization maintains that it is a legitimate religion with a unique philosophy and worldview. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Temple of Set. The Temple of Set is a religious organization that was founded in 1975 by Michael Aquino, a former member of the Church of Satan. Wow, what a crazy connection. The Temple of Set is based on the philosophy of Setianism, and the group mainly focuses on the worship of Set, an ancient Egyptian deity associated with chaos, strength, and individuality. The Temple of Set is unique among religious organizations in that it places a strong emphasis on individualism and self-realization. It also incorporates elements of ancient Egyptian religion, as well as ideas from other Western esoteric traditions. Members of the Temple of Set are encouraged to pursue knowledge and self-discovery through practices such as meditation, ritual magic, and intellectual inquiry. The organization is very secretive and very exclusive, with membership only available through invitation. While believing in and worshipping the deity, those who belong to this group also believe in the existence of demons and other supernatural entities. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Manson family, started by the horrible Charles Manson. This story starts off when Manson was released from prison in 1967, where he then moved to San Francisco, where he gained a small following that would eventually go on to be the cult known as the Family. This charismatic yet very unstable ex-convict attracted a group of young and vulnerable followers who believed he was a messianic figure with profound insights into society and the future of humanity. And not only this, but they also believed that he had supernatural powers as well. The group eventually moved to an abandoned ranch outside of Los Angeles, and it was here that Manson continued to brainwash his followers and manipulate them with his own religious philosophies. Manson's followers carried out these brutal killings under his instructions, which he claimed were a part of a twisted plan to incite a race war he called Helter Skelter. In the end, Manson and several of his followers were eventually arrested and charged for the crimes, with a trial that was highly publicized. Manson's bizarre behavior and manipulative tactics in court further solidified his reputation as a deranged cult leader, and the story of this cult has had a lasting impact on American culture and continues to fascinate and absolutely horrify people to this day. Finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar, also known as the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon, was a medieval Christian military order that was founded in the 12th century to protect pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land during the Crusades. The order became known for their bravery and skill in battle, and they quickly gained wealth and power throughout Europe. The Knights Templar became one of the most influential and respected organizations of their time, with members including knights, monks, and priests who took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They were known for their distinctive white mantles with a red cross and their motto, "Not to us, Lord, not to us, but to your name give glory." However, their power and wealth eventually became a threat to some European monarchs and the church, which many claim led to their downfall. The Knights Templar were disbanded in the early 14th century, especially since they were being accused of heresy and devil worship by the Catholic Church.
This next actor was in Beetlejuice. Topical. The second one just came out recently. I actually thought it was pretty good. What do you guys think of that? If you've seen it, let me know down below. Anyway, sadly, I won't be talking about any of the fantastic performers in that movie. It's this list, so you can probably guess who I'll be discussing. Yeah, Jeffrey Jones. Just like Kevin Spacey, it's another name that just kind of makes you queasy now. Jeffrey Jones was never a huge star, but he was a serviceable actor. He worked with Tim Burton in a few of his projects. He played a good foil to to Matthew Broderick in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it turned out this guy was much worse than an uptight high school principal. Instead, he was creepy in the worst way. In 2002, he was arrested for soliciting someone to do something they should not have been doing at their age. That's putting it very lightly, but you know, YouTube's pretty strict about this stuff. Let's just move on. Up next on the list, we have Bob Marley. Probably very confused and concerned where I'm going with this one. All right, well, I'm not talking about the real Bob Marley. I'm talking about a really bad dude who impersonated Bob Marley. He actually got paid to be a Bob Marley impersonator, but his outlook and behavior in real life wasn't anywhere close to who he was pretending to be. The impersonator in question is named Melvin Edwards, and in 2012 he was convicted of manslaughter for the killing of his wife in their home in Manchester. Edwards worked on a cruise ship performing as Bob Marley. On July 23rd of 2011, his wife Juliette told him that she wanted to end their marriage. Their relationship had slowly been breaking down over the course of months, and she decided she just wanted to move on, but Melvin was furious. He ended up forcing himself on her before taking her life. He ended up receiving a 16-year jail sentence. And next up we have Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll himself. Yes, this is another celebrity impersonator, and honestly this isn't all that shocking. With just the sheer amount of Elvis impersonators out there, you gotta imagine some of them have to be up to no good. It's just basic math. Elvis impersonator in question here is named Michael Conley, and Conley was in some pretty deep trouble. Cops were on his tail for an outstanding warrant, but he wasn't gonna go down without a fight. Instead, he and his 28-year-old son held up inside a Florida motel room. Conley told police that he had C4 explosives and held up a vial of white powder, which he claimed was ricin. If you've ever seen Breaking Bad, you know exactly what ricin is. It's a highly lethal plant byproduct. The FBI, local and state police, SWAT, the bomb squads, they all showed up, and there was this 4-hour standoff. But then Conley's son cooked him some oatmeal and he came to his senses. The Elvis impersonator later said he'd been disoriented due to his diabetes. Now, this isn't the worst thing this guy's done though, far from it. In 1990, Conley killed a guy at a motel in Fort Lauderdale. His conviction was overturned 2 years later because of a prosecution foul-up, and here's the really weird part. While that case was going on, Conley would do his Elvis act outside the courtroom to entertain the courthouse personnel. That's just weird. Anyway, lesson, keep this guy away from hotels, apparently. For a long time, R. Kelly managed to keep his demons trapped behind bars, at bay. He was able to keep his inner demons away from the public eye, sorta. There were always rumors about the creepy stuff he did, but things really blew up thanks to the 29 documentary Surviving R. Kelly. Kelly had been in and out of court since the 90s, and in 2008 he was acquitted of some incredibly serious charges, but in 2019 RCA Records terminated his contract after all the talk about how genuinely messed up this guy was started coming up again, and it even led to a new police investigation. As of 2023, he's been serving a 31-year sentence for his crimes. Marilyn Manson. Yeah, I know it's very 1999 of me to be like, oh, Marilyn Manson's the devil. I'm not talking about all the shock rock imagery. Turns out Marilyn Manson is actually just not the greatest dude. Somewhere around 16 people have come out with allegations against him. Exes coming out with stories about how awful he was in their relationships. Others have come out with SA allegations. It's all pretty not great stuff, and as much as I dug that anti-establishment attitude that he had, especially when I was younger, obviously, the stuff that's come out about him in recent years just makes his 90s and early 2000s wild, crazy rock and roll persona less cool and shocking and more just plain upsetting. Do you have a fear of snakes? If so, you'd never want to cross paths with Nure Onna, a yokai from Japanese folklore and mythology. There are tons of different yokai which are sort of like Japanese demons. This particular yokai, though, in its true form, is a gigantic snake with a woman's head. Basically a combination of a serpent and the ghost girl from The Ring. Nightmares for days. You know when people say that what you picture in your own head is always going to be scarier than something that can ever be described or shown on screen? That's just not the case when it comes to Japan. This isn't even remotely close to being the weirdest or scariest type of yokai, but it's still effectively terrifying. I don't know, just They always find a way to make something extra scary and bizarre. The humanish head of a Nura Ona often has yellow eyes, a forked tongue, and long matted black hair that's always wet, like it's just slithered out of a river dripping with water. But Nura Ona are deceptive. They don't just show up as these horrific snake monsters right out the gate. Anyone with good sense would just turn around and run long before getting close. Instead, these yokai often take the form of a regular woman at first. They might pretend to be in distress, maybe holding what looks like an infant, or just crying for help, and once they've got you close enough, they reveal their true form, shifting from that harmless woman to this. And at that point, it's usually too late to get away. Jiangshi, these creatures come from Chinese folklore and are often translated as hopping vampires, which sounds cute, but it's not. They're a bit different from the usual vampire stories you might be familiar with. Instead of the suave, seductive type, Jiangshi is more of a creepy undead creature that moves around by hopping. They're kind of more like zombies that can't walk properly, so they just hop to get around. It sounds kind of silly, and in some of the movies they show up in, it kind of looks funny, but at the same time, it's creepy. Something about that surreal image of a pale, gaunt, undead creature in Qing Dynasty clothing just hopping around just makes my skin crawl a little. Jiangshi are also said to have a stiff, unnatural posture thanks to rigor mortis. Their fingers are capped with long, sharp fingernails, which they use to scratch or claw at their victims, and they're very aggressive, feeding on the life force of living people. They're said to be drawn to the warmth of the living and will attack anyone they come across. Because they're technically undead too, they can only be killed through specific methods, but luckily they have a lot of weaknesses and can be easily distracted. They're terrified of their own reflection. They usually leave at the sound of a rooster's call, because that means daylight is approaching, and they have an aversion to sunlight, just like your standard vampires. You can use a variety of talismans to keep them at bay as well, and if you drop a bunch of coins on the ground, they'll often stop what they're doing to bend down and count them. Finishing off with some Celtic folklore, we have the puka. Pukas are shapeshifters who can take on many different forms. It's known for being both mischievous and malevolent, which makes it a bit of a wild card when it comes to encounters. The puka can transform into a wide variety of animals, but it's often described as a dark horse-like creature with glowing eyes. It might also take the form of a goat, rabbit, or, of course, a human, but their human forms aren't always very convincing. They often retain some animal traits like pointy ears or tails, dead giveaways that you're not dealing with a real person. When it shows up as a horse though, it's said to be especially dangerous because it can trick people into riding it, and once you're on its back, it'll just gallop off wildly, taking you on a really terrifying ride. But puka encounters rarely ever end in death. For the most part, they act more as tricksters than serious physical threats. It's known to play mind games, causing confusion and fear. Might lead people astray, causing them to get lost or leading them to dangerous places. But some of these creatures also choose to warn people of danger rather than lead them into it. I guess when it comes to demons and paranormal entities, you know, you got good ones and bad ones, just like you got good people and pieces of crap.
Number 5. Leviathan. Leviathan became a demon of darkness and chaos and a leader of hell mentioned in the book of Enoch. Leviathan is one of Lucifer's arms and one of the many faces of the devil in Christianity. He is also the representation of the sin envy. Leviathan is a tamer of beasts, a beast collector, and an excellent strategist. He has the power to summon hellish whales that are natural inhabitants of hell and use them in battle. Leviathan appears as a huge sea beast, a very powerful species of a sea serpent dragon. This form is so colossal that it's said to be capable of frightening the bravest of men and is capable of swallowing fishing boats and even ships. Its scales are several small teeth throughout its body, similar to a shark's body. Now in his human form, Leviathan appears as a handsome young man in his late teens. Although the appearance is similar to a human, he has fish gills on his neck and his ears are pointed. He also has a small shark-like teeth that are hidden under a thin layer of skin in his mouth. Like his name suggests, he is a very jealous person, with Lucifer often being the target though. It should be noted that Leviathan's jealousy isn't limited to only him, so you should watch out. Number 4. Lucifer. Lucifer was one of the most beautiful and indescribable beings created by God, with his wisdom and beauty being described as perfect. However, despite being considered a perfect, beautiful, and glorious being by countless angels, Lucifer was extremely proud and rebelled against his father after refusing to bow down to Adam and Eve. Therefore, Lucifer is known as the first sinner, the devil, and the adversary. Now, Lucifer didn't create any angels, only God had that power, but Lucifer did trick some of them into rebelling against God and becoming his followers, claiming that he was more powerful than God and would take God's place as the ruler of the universe. They believed him, and since then, Lucifer has used them to do his will. He's known for the deadly sin of pride, and he used his pride to persuade them. I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14. Lucifer also sends the worst people up to earth to wreak havoc and terrorize everyone, as well as tries to tempt non-sinners to the dark side, so be safe. Number 3. Abaddon. Abaddon is considered the ruler of all demons in the 7th layer of hell, violence, and also the commander of the locusts of Abaddon. Now, what are the locusts? Well, they're scorpion-tailed warhorses that have a man's face with lion's teeth. They are commanded to torment anyone for 5 months who does not have the seal of God on their forehead by using their scorpion-like tails. So, yeah. He rules them. He has eyes as black as night and a huge mouth with many sharp teeth like those of a great white shark. In addition, he wears black armor and his wings have even turned dark. Abaddon is sometimes referred or foreshadowed as death, as they both are neutral entities of two opposing forces. He is also considered both an angel and demon, with neutral and at times lawful agents of both heaven and hell. It is unknown where his allegiance lies. He's often bringing judgment upon people in the name of God, implying that he works for the Almighty. That being said, Abaddon has also caused events that God would never have wanted to happen, let alone the fact that Abaddon helped Lucifer during the war in heaven. Seems like he liked to play both sides. It's also said during Judgment Day he will gather the souls of the damned and carry them down to the place of God's final judgment. Number 2. Asmodeus. Asmodeus is a demon who personifies and represents lust, the sexual sin related to adultery. He is the demon who exists as the arch-rival of the angel of chastity, Gabriel. Asmodeus is also referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell and represents one of the 7 deadly sins, being lust. Asmodeus is a demon of lust and is therefore responsible for twisting people's sexual desires. It is said that people who fall to Asmodeus' ways will be sentenced to an eternity in the 2nd level of hell. He is also a demon of lechery, jealousy, anger, and revenge. In hell, Asmodeus looks human, however he has stark black eyes and 2 rows of shark teeth sticking out of his mouth. In this form, Asmodeus has no hair on his head, but has a muscular appearance from the waist up and 2 bat wings protruding from his back. From the waist down, he has what looks like kangaroo legs and a long dragon's tail. His horrible appearance is capable of causing fear and repudiation in humans who fall into hell, and that's the demon's intention. And coming up at number 1 is Satan. Satan is a prominent demon in the hierarchy of hell. He is known for bringing evil and temptation, and is known as the deceiver who leads humanity astray. Satan is even able to take control of the life of a person in the stead of God, though only to an extent to what God allows. Satan would appear to those who are sinful, playing into their hearts and towing them into despair. He may either be depicted as a rebel to the will of God, or as one who tempts mankind to commit sin to show God that mankind can easily be led astray from him. He is described as the ruler of the demons and the god of this age. In Revelation, Satan appears as a great red dragon who is ultimately banished from heaven by Michael the archangel. Satan is mostly known as the devil, and although the book of Genesis does not mention him, he is often identified with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Satan is also said to be associated with one of the 7 deadly sins, being wrath, and is one of the 7 princes of hell.
In our number 5 spot today, we have Bob Dylan. Not necessarily who I really expected to put on this list, but there was an interesting interview back in 2014 that made many people speculate that the musician might have actually sold his soul. In the interview, he was explaining that he owes his years of fame and success to a deal he made. The interviewer asked, "Why are you still out here?" To which Dylan replied, "It goes back to that destiny thing. I made a bargain with it. You know, long time ago, and I'm holding up my end." The interviewer, of course, had to follow up on that cryptic message, so he said, "What was your bargain?" And he replied, "To get where I am now." The interviewer asked, "Should I ask who you made the bargain with?" And he replied, "With the chief commander." The interviewer clarified, "On this earth?" To which he answered, "In this earth and in a world we can't see." I can totally see why some people decided to draw their own conclusions from this. I mean, it sounds like he's basically speaking in riddles, so while he doesn't outright say that he sold his soul, some believe that this is what he was trying to say in that interview. In our number 4 spot today, we have Mike Colter. You might know Mike Colter as he plays Luke Cage in the MCU, but what you might not know about the actor is a very ghostly encounter that he had. Back in 2019, Mike was on Kelly Clarkson's show, and while on the show, he had an eerie tale for the audience when he said, quote, "I'm from the South, and there's a lot of things that happened in the South that don't happen anywhere else." Of course, Kelly inquired further, and that is when the star revealed a reoccurring moment that he claims happened, quote, "night after night." His mother basically explained it to him as a spirit being attracted to his energy. He said, quote, "When I was a kid, I used to have this thing that was sitting on my chest when I would sleep, and it was keeping me from getting up, and I couldn't open my eyes, and I would struggle." I don't know about you guys, but that sounds absolutely horrifying. I know a couple demons that could match up with that. Maybe it's a sleep paralysis demon, who knows. In our number 3 spot today, we have Vanessa Hudgens. Just last year, in April of 2022, Vanessa appeared on the Kelly Clarkson show. I guess everyone's just on the Kelly Clarkson show talking about their paranormal experience. And during this appearance, she spoke about having, quote, "a lot of paranormal encounters over the years." She said, quote, "I kind of shut it down for a while because the unknown is scary, but I recently was like, no, this is a gift and something that I have the ability to do, so I'm going to lean into it." Expanding on how she is leaning into these abilities, she explained that she had actually recently completed her first real paranormal investigation. Now we have Ed, Lorraine, and Vanessa. During this investigation, she said she met a very playful ghost at the site of a cemetery. I mean, I guess it's not like a malicious spirit. She said that she was able to speak to this ghost using a spirit box, and that after introducing herself, the ghost replied and repeated the names back to her. Maybe this year we'll see Vanessa diving even further into the paranormal, the occult, and all of these otherworldly beings. In our number 2 spot today, we have Courtney Cox. Back in March 2022, former Friends star Courtney Cox shared a harrowing experience she had that led her to go as far as to sell her house. She said, quote, "I didn't believe at first, but I lived in this house in Laurel Canyon, which is in LA, obviously, and it was Gypsy Rose Lee's house and Carole King's." She went on to say, quote, "So Carole King came over to my house and she said that there had been a divorce that was really ugly and that there was a ghost in the house. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But other people would stay there with me, like friends of mine, and they said they felt an encounter with a woman who was sitting on the edge of the bed." Despite these tales from her friends and even doing an actual seance with Carole, Courtney still wasn't really a believer of the supernatural. This all did eventually change, however, and it happened when a UPS worker came to her house. Quote, "I was at the house one day, not being a believer. The doorbell rang, it was a UPS guy or something, and I opened the door and he said, 'Do you know this house is haunted?' And I go, 'Yeah, why? Why do you think that?' And he goes, 'Because there's someone standing behind you.' And I was like, let's sell." She said she quickly put the house up for sale. After that, and that she, quote, "couldn't sleep there alone ever again." And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Cynthia Rowley. So there was a show called Celebrity Ghost Stories, and in an episode, Cynthia Rowley showed up to share her haunting tale. The designer recalled a spooky tale that took place at her estate, which is located in Greenwich, Connecticut. She explained that there was a, quote, "ghost-like feeling in the house," which certainly is an eerie feeling, but soon a feeling turned into something a little bit more tangible. Eventually, Cynthia began seeing a sort of apparition in the corner of a room in the home. This apparition appeared as a woman who was wearing a sort of scarf over her face. This is all chilling enough, but things only got worse when Cynthia had to escape a fire in her home. She did, thankfully, and was fine, but then the local fire chief told her something she hadn't previously known. The woman who once owned the home she now lived in was called the, quote, "diamond match heiress," who was badly burned in a blaze. Seems like Cynthia may have been haunted by the previous owner of the house, and not just in like a tacky decor kind of way, I mean like for real haunted.
This image right here comes from Reddit user According Pangolin84, who writes, "I'm not familiar with ghosts and paranormal things, so I don't know the logic behind anything, but I came across this old photo I have from a haunted mansion in Utah. This place was a hot spot to break into during high school, and my friends did it and wanted a photo while I stayed back in the car. The figure in the back is what I suspect to be some kind of ghost. I only had 2 friends go in the house for a photo. The Reddit user also gave some context about this haunted mansion itself in a follow-up post, writing, "It's called the Benjamin Pump House in Utah. It has no electricity and is pretty much empty on the inside besides garbage. Growing up, I heard a lot of stories about scary interactions in the house, people reporting footsteps and the feelings of being watched. As far as my friends and what they felt, all I can recall is them talking about what sounded like someone walking through the brush around the house, and there was a weird creaking that also circled around the house, but nothing in relation to being watched or feeling like there was someone else in there." This image here was shared by Reddit user PositiveCable1487, who writes, "Earlier this month, my sister and her partner went to the Stanley Hotel. Don't know the backstory on the mirror, but apparently there are many reports of sightings in it. This is the photo my sister took. She said the mirror was squeaky clean in person, no smudges. Now, this image may not be all that creepy on its own, but the Stanley Hotel definitely is. Let me tell you fine folks about it. The Stanley Hotel is famously the hotel that inspired Stephen King to write The Shining. He'd been snowed in there with his family in 1974 while on a trip to the Rocky Mountains National Park. They happened to be the only guests there and found the place rather eerie. And King isn't the only guest to have found the place unsettling. Tons of people have reported spooky encounters at the hotel, like the ghost of a woman named Mrs. Wilson, former chambermaid, said to haunt room 217. Staff have reported hearing sounds of people dancing and laughing in the ballroom, only to find nobody there. Guests will often report seeing dark figures standing over their beds at night, and it's said that the spirit of the former landowner, Lord Dunraven, will often be seen staring out the window of room 407. From TikToker Ahab Kasmaya1 comes a terrifying encounter he had while exploring an abandoned building. He's filming down a dark hallway when suddenly a knocking sound is heard off camera, and when the urban explorer pans to take a look, this is what happened. Now, instead of screaming at the top of his lungs and running away at top speed, the brave man begins praying instead, and the entity retreats back into the shadows. Which, you know what, hey, seemed to work great and all, but here's another idea: just don't be there in the first place. You win every fight you walk away from at the end of the day. Reddit user HealthyMagician895 posted this series of images here, along with a description reading, "I was messing around in my mom's room taking a video when my friend pointed out something at the corner of the door. At the end of the video, I went back to the mirror, but it was gone. Can somebody explain this? I'm genuinely creeped out." And yeah, fair enough. I'd be genuinely creeped out too if I saw that thing peeking out at me from the doorway. Here's what's interesting about this photo too. It reminds me a lot of a video I shared in part 1. If you'd like to watch part 1, by the way, link is in the description. But just for a quick comparison, check this out. Yeah, pretty eerily similar. Even the positioning. What do you all think though? Hoax? Or is there a ghoulish demon thing crawling around people's houses and peering out at them from the tops of door frames? I certainly hope not. Imagine hearing a noise in your hallway at 3 a.m., going out into your hallway to check it out, and spotting this. This one comes from TikToker Official Empty Alien. I don't even care that's not real. I had to throw it on here because that is some fuel for your nightmares right there. The long fingers slowly creeping into frame. I think that's what really does it for me. This is pretty much the exact face I'd scare the crap out of myself, imagining it as a youngster popping up in a window or glaring at me from the bottom of the stairs at night. It's kind of uncanny actually too. The white face, the glare, the big eyes and the teeth. I don't know, it's always what I'd imagine for whatever reason, and then I'd be up all night. Fun times. Anyway, with all that said, the surveillance camera ghoul. This footage was taken by a man named Mario Lara, who captured something deeply harrowing on camera in his store in Mexico. Take a look. Leading up to this video, Lara had begun to notice strange things going on in his store. He'd arrive in the morning to find things out of place, especially a piñata which would repeatedly be found on the floor, and one morning it was found in a totally different spot than he'd left it the previous night. He started to think someone was sneaking into the shop after closing and messing with things, so he set up a security camera. One night he gets an alert on his phone. The camera was detecting motion. The last thing he was expecting to see, though, was this ghoulish figure poking out from a pile of piñatas. It's hard to make that sentence sound ominous. I mean, piñatas, they're just so joyous. Well, unfortunately for Mario, though, things weren't joyous in the shop. Things just continued getting worse. His security camera continued picking up odd footage at night, like piñatas spinning around on their own. One of his power drills, which was sitting on the floor, seemingly turned on by itself one day, nearly hitting his foot. It seemed like whatever this entity was, it was not looking to be friendly, despite being surrounded by festive piñatas. This next video comes from a woman named Mandy Mary, who spotted something incredibly creepy on camera. Take a look at this. Did you catch that? It happens very fast, but as the lights flicker, you can spot what looks to be this shadowy figure peering out from the doorway, and it's definitely not there when the lights are on. Now, why did the lights flicker? Well, Mandy's son had flicked them himself. Mandy wrote in the description of the video, "This video is from my back house. My son was behind me when I recorded this. We were creeped out as we've seen a dark figure back there many times, so thought it would be a good idea to record there at night. We videotaped and he tried to spook me by flicking the light. The moment he turned off the light, you could see the outside light from the window. Within this outside light, you can see a dark shadow figure standing there. This wasn't us. Some of the people I've shown this to said, it's your son. I said, no way. He was right behind me, and that shadow figure was in the middle of the window, reflection, not the door we were at. So no way it was him. Every night I see dark shadows walking back and forth, making my backlight sensor flip on and off. Also, about a month ago, something shook my door so hard it shook my entire hallway. Speaking of hallways, this next person was attacked on camera by what appears to be some invisible force in the hallway. Take a look. Yeah, damn right, turn around and go back where you came. Whoever this guy was visiting, whatever plans he had at the end of that hallway, they were crossed off his list as soon as he hit the ground. What in the hell happened there? This CCTV security camera footage was taken in what looks to be the hallway of some sort of facility, like a doctor's office, could also be an apartment, but it's hard to tell. You'll notice that before the guy even falls down and gets dragged, this black shadowy shape starts to form, and once it drags the guy a few feet down the hall, it fades back away, releasing the man who rightly gets up and books it back down the hall. This next one has to be one of my favorite spooky internet videos. Some have compared this creepy woman to a witch, others have said it may be a djinn. Whatever she is though, she's downright creepy, and this just makes for a very unsettling watch. The video was apparently shot in Saudi Arabia. It shows a man driving on a narrow, empty road. As he's driving, we can clearly spot this strange, hunched figure in the distance. The figure moves in this really unnatural way, hobbling around. It's also hard to make out where its head is because it's all hunched. It just looks completely wrong. And the man filming thinks so too, because you can clearly hear how terrified he is. He sounds completely panicked, even on the verge of tears. Honestly, his reaction is kind of what makes the video. At one point he tries to reverse away from the figure, but the road is so narrow and winding that he can't move very quickly, and the witch-like figure just keeps gaining on him, waddling towards the car with that unsettling gait, getting closer and closer, but never deciding to get right up close. It's like she's just toying with him. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the past couple years, which based on some of the videos on this list, I can understand why you would, you've probably heard of the Serbian dancing lady craze. People coming across lone women dancing in the street late at night for seemingly no reason. Take a look at this. Sorry, not sorry. That one gets you? Look, it's spooky season now. You gotta be ready for this sort of thing. Gotta be on your toes. All right, well, I don't think it gets any more classically demonic looking than this image here. The photo shows a large winged figure. It was taken in Phoenix, Arizona by a man named Richard Christensen in 2017. He wasn't sure what he captured, and neither was anyone else. Some people think it looks like a Mothman, others think it might look like an angel, or, of course, the opposite. But, like everything on this list, what do you think? Let us know down below. I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video. In 2001, Manuela and Daniel Ruda, a couple, committed a very horrific crime. They were responsible for the death of their very own friend, Frank Hackert. They believed Hackert was so amusing that he would make the perfect court jester for Satan. The Rudas were deeply involved in occult practices and would apparently sleep in graveyards and go to devil-worshipping ceremonies. And you know what? Nothing wrong with liking spooky stuff, just as long as it doesn't go too far. And in this case, it definitely did. Their fascination with the occult ended in a series of violent rituals that they subjected their friend to, ultimately leading to his death. After killing him, they placed his body in a coffin that they were using as a coffee table. They even attempted to dismember his remains, but were then caught before they could fully dispose of the evidence. In 2002, both Manuela and Daniel were convicted of the crime. Daniel was sentenced to prison, while Manuela was committed to a psychiatric institution. Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, one of the most infamous serial killers in American history. Unlike most serial killers, Ramirez's crimes were very random. There's just no clear pattern to his method other than brutality for the sake of brutality. He'd attack men, women, old, young. He's responsible for a ton of home invasions, violent attacks, SA, and of course, killings. He also viewed himself as a servant of Satan, leaving symbols of the occult at his crime scenes like pentagrams. During his trial, he famously flashed a pentagram tattoo on his palm, claiming his allegiance to the devil. He believed that he was carrying out the will of Satan, claiming that his acts were a form of worship. He often used the phrase "Satan is great" to justify his actions. Gilles de Rais was born in 1405 in France. He's known for a lot of things. He was a wealthy nobleman, a knight, a leader in the French army during the 100 Years' War, a good friend of Joan of Arc, and one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Around 1432, Gilles de Rais began withdrawing from society, pursuing some of his darker hobbies in secret, and it was at this time that, coincidentally, boys around his castle began to go missing. And when witnesses started noticing bodies being buried by Gilles de Rais' staff members, it became pretty clear that something very dark was going on, but no one was prepared for how truly disturbing things would turn out to be. Well, it turned out Gilles de Rais had a slight obsession with the occult, especially alchemy. In medieval Europe, alchemy was often viewed as a form of black magic. Gilles ended up employing an alchemist from Tuscany named Francois Prelati, who claimed to have a special connection to a demonic entity he called a Baron. Prelati promised that he could summon this spirit to help Gilles with his magical practices. He began providing Prelati with body parts from his young victims, gruesome offerings that would apparently help conjure this demonic entity. It didn't work, and Gilles de Rais was executed for his crimes on October 26th of 1440. He'd taken the lives of 140 boys, possibly and probably far more than that. In 2015, in the small town of Dudley, England, a 65-year-old pensioner named Peter Churn was attacked by a young man named Tommy Smith, who later claimed that he'd been possessed by a demon. In reality, though, Smith just wanted the old man's Range Rover. Peter Churn was in his garage when this possessed Smith wildly attacked him with a blade. The attack was so vicious that his weapon actually snapped in two. Miraculously, Churn survived the attack but suffered a stroke as a result and was blinded in one eye, along with having several slash and stab wounds to his head, chest, neck, back, and ears. Churn later said in court that Tommy Smith had been waving the blade around like a kung fu sword. The old man managed to fight Smith off though. He started pressing on the guy's eyes, but blacked out after that from his injuries, obviously. Luckily, his son came out of the house though, at which point the devil-possessed blade wielder took off running. The court obviously didn't believe his whole possession story, but instead of prison, Tommy was sentenced to a mental health hospital for the foreseeable future. If I wished I could pay a visit to your city every night, at will I could slay thousands of your best citizens, for I am in close relationship with the angel of death. That's just one line from a letter published in the paper on March 13th, 1919, written by a man calling himself the Axeman, one of the first modern-day serial killers. The Axeman claimed to be a demon who resided in hell, and his letter acted as a warning to the people of New Orleans that he would kill again if people didn't blare jazz music from their homes on the night of March 19th. Well, the 19th came around, and sure enough, jazz was heard in every home and dance hall throughout the night, and no one was killed. The identity of this mysterious Axeman was never found, but he took the lives of 6 people, leaving 6 others injured, between May of 1918 and October of 1919. Many of his victims were Italian immigrants. He'd quietly sneak into people's homes in the dead of night, bludgeoning them with his axe. Then, as suddenly as the killings began, they just stopped. Sean Sellers had a very troubled upbringing. His mother was very young when she had him, and his father wasn't really in the picture. His grandfather and uncle also put him through severe mistreatment. On several occasions, Sellers' uncle would force him to wear soiled diapers on his head just to humiliate him. By the time he was in 10th grade, he and his family had moved 30 times. Sellers began taking a keen interest in the occult and claimed to have been possessed by a demon on March 5th, 1986, when he snuck into his mother and stepfather's room with a firearm and killed them both. According to him, he'd also carried out an occult-like ritual before deciding to take their lives. The year before this, he'd killed a Circle K convenience store clerk, Robert Paul Bauer, because he'd refused to sell him beer. In 1986, he was sentenced to death for his crimes, making him the youngest criminal ever sentenced to death in America since 1976, a record he still holds to this day. His death sentence wasn't carried out until 1999. In his 13 years in jail, he'd become a born-again Christian, and just 2 days before his death, Sellers wrote in his diary that he was amazed at the, quote, self-righteousness he still encountered from people who didn't know him. Going on to write, "People, for one moment, get your eyes off my sins and look at your own. You want to harp on something that happened 13 years ago. 13 years. In February of 2016, Jason Dalton, who was working as an Uber driver in Kalamazoo, Michigan, went on a shocking spree that left 6 people dead and 2 others injured. What makes this case particularly unsettling is the way Dalton tried to explain his actions during police interrogations. On the night of his spree, Dalton picked up and dropped off passengers, and in between doing this, randomly started shooting at people on the street. He killed 62-year-old Mary Lou Nye, her sister-in-law Joe, 74-year-old Dorothy Brown, 68-year-old Barbara Hawthorne, and father and son Richard and Tyler Smith. When police questioned him, Dalton claimed that the Uber app had somehow taken over his mind and body, stating, "I know you guys are gonna have a hard time believing this, but it literally took over my mind and body." He then described seeing symbols, including the Eastern Star and a horned devil head that would appear on his phone. Dalton received life in prison for his crimes. On September 10th of 2015, a body was discovered in an abandoned car in the Whitestone area of Queens, New York. The victim was 28-year-old Angie Escobar. The medical examiner determined that Angie had been killed about 4 days before her body was found. The New York Police Department quickly identified Luis Zambrano as the prime suspect. He was arrested on September 18th after fleeing to Virginia, but he didn't take long to confess to the crime. Zambrano admitted that he had attacked Angie with a pair of scissors after she told him she wanted to break up. Zambrano also claimed that he'd been possessed by a demon at the time of the attack. In April 2016, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 20 years in prison. On top of that, he was also convicted of an unrelated burglary charge, which added another 3 years to his sentence. I wonder if Satan told him to do that as well. Peter Kürten, often referred to as the Vampire of Dusseldorf, one of the most notorious serial killers in German history, active from February to November of 1929 in the city of Dusseldorf. He had a fascination with people's red bodily fluids and would often drink the BLOOD of his victims, hence his nickname. He carried out several brutal killings and other very disturbing crimes I can't really get into detail on. When he was finally apprehended though, Kürten confessed to his crimes in detail, describing how he felt exhilarated during his crimes. Ultimately, he was convicted and sentenced to beheading in 1931. Between 1976 and 1977, David Berkowitz, aka the Son of Sam, terrorized New York City with a series of shootings that left 6 people dead and several others injured. One of the strangest parts about the Son of Sam case, though, was Berkowitz's bizarre claim that a demonic dog was instructing him to commit his crimes. He believed this dog, belonging to a neighbor, was possessed and sent by the devil to give him orders. Berkowitz's letters to the police and the media were filled with all these cryptic messages and references to his supposed connection with the supernatural. He also said he was in a satanic cult. During his arrest, he infamously stated that he was just following orders from this demonic entity in the dog. And the Son of Sam became a name that would haunt headlines for years. After his capture, Berkowitz was diagnosed with various mental health issues, but he continued to insist that he was acting under the influence of some sort of evil force. In 1978, he pled guilty to his crimes and was given 6 consecutive 25 years to life sentences, one for each of his crimes. He's still alive and in prison to this day.
Caught on CCTV cameras. At number 10 is this first demon caught on CCTV. This eerie photograph from 2008 reveals something inexplicable, and it's not a Photoshop trick either. It's a real head scratcher. Neil Sandback, a photographer, was just doing his job, snapping pictures for a couple planning their wedding in Hertfordshire. But when he examined his digital shots, he found a puzzling figure. In the corner of the building, there was a glowing, ghostly apparition of a younger human. What's unsettling is the level of detail. You can make out facial features, which oddly resemble more of a skull than a human face. Even more chilling, the farm staff had witnessed a similar figure, a young man in white nightclothes. Real or not, this one is a bone-chilling mystery. At number 9 is the man on CCTV. A car's dash cam captured something inexplicable. At around 2:30 in the morning, as the car cruised down a desolate highway, a man in blue shorts and a white t-shirt seemed to just appear out of thin air. The car then would go to pass right through him, and when the driver looked back, the mysterious figure had vanished into the night. It's like he just popped out of nowhere, materializing out of thin air from the ether itself. Was this a ghost? The skeptics argue it might be a shadowy illusion cast in front of the vehicle, but the truth remains as elusive as the apparition itself. If you're enjoying this video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. I personally would really appreciate it if you did. At number 8 is the haunted barbershop CCTV. This unsettling video from just a regular barbershop, things take a bizarre turn. You see, at first, it seems just like an ordinary day with someone getting a haircut and the staff going about their business. But then, something spine-tingling happens. The barber's cape mysteriously moves on its own. It's the kind of moment that makes you wonder, did I really see that? So they decided to review the CCTV footage, and that's when the hair-raising reality hits them. Watch closely as the blue cape shifts inexplicably. You might be asking, when will someone notice? And they actually do, and their reaction is exactly what you'd expect. Now, here comes the most hair-raising part. This clip goes on to become even more disturbing, giving you the kind of creeps that make you question the boundaries of the known and unknown, leaving you lingering with that fleeting sense of eerie uncertainty. At number 7 is the Manchester office security footage. Security guards casually scanning through their surveillance screen on the early hours of November 1st were just minding their business, but then the mundane turns into a nightmarish roller coaster ride. You see, at precisely 3 a.m., the entire office undergoes a freakish transformation. All the computers' power go on simultaneously, casting an eerie blue glow. Then chairs begin to take flight, seemingly possessed by an invisible force. Cabinets swing open on their own, and the office paraphernalia dance like marionettes gone wild. A scene right out of a horror movie. Now, what's so peculiar about 3 a.m.? Well, some folks call it the witching hour. The boundary between our world and the supernatural realm supposedly weakens to a thin veil, allowing mischievous spirits to cross over. Could it be that these relentless entities chose this unholy hour to unleash their chaos on this unsuspecting office? The footage certainly raises more questions than it answers. Check it out for yourself. At number 6 is the Croatia found footage. A truly spine-tingling video from Croatia that'll make you question the very fabric of reality as you know it. So when these two guys are just chilling, have a good time, they suddenly spot something bizarre in the distance. At first they're just like, meh, what was that? And even laugh it off, but that's where it gets scary. This eerie figure starts getting closer, and the dudes, well, I mean, they're strangely pretty chill. I mean, seriously, if I saw that thing, I'd be sprinting for the hills. The way it moves is just unnatural and disturbing, but hold on to your horses because it gets worse. When they finally make a run for it, the thing starts chasing them, standing upright like something out of a horror movie. And here's the kicker. The description claims that these guys vanished after this incident. Seriously, you'll want to check out the video and decide for yourself. At number 5 is the Ventura Bar. It's the dead of the night and chairs start sliding around by themselves. The bar manager shared this video on social media and it gave everybody the heebie-jeebies. Fast forward a few weeks and we've got more chair shenanigans, but this time it's broad daylight and people are watching in disbelief. Did somebody take off a vengeful spirit? That's one theory, and it's pretty eerie. But here's the kicker. This bar isn't your average watering hole. No, it's got a wall filled with pictures of every customer and employee who's passed away. Could this possibly be a ghostly reunion spot? And here in the video at 1 minute and 40 seconds, we might just be getting closer to discovering who these relentless spirits are. At number 4 is the chair out of thin air. Here we've got a spooky video showing a chair materializing out of nowhere. And that's just way more terrifying than just objects moving around. Could this chair possibly be from another dimension, or is there something more sinister going on? Take a look at this clip focusing on the middle desk around 2 minutes in. Between 2 minutes and 2 minutes and 7 seconds, someone must have really ticked off a spirit or something. Now you might be thinking, maybe that chair was hiding in the shadows all along, but hold on, if somebody's under that desk, they would have pushed the chair against the wall, right? So how did it suddenly change direction and keep going? It's a head scratcher. Plus, this was filmed way after working hours, so unless somebody pulled an all-nighter under that desk just for this video, it seems like there's some spooky stuff going on in this office. At number 3 is the ghost alarm. Here's another intriguing clip coming from straight out of the ghost subreddit. This one was shared by user Raman8, and the title simply says, quote, "Something set off the security footage on one of our properties. Nothing was stolen. This is the footage." Take a gander at the video and you might just be up for some chills. Upon first glance, it seems like there's nothing out of the ordinary. But as you look closely, there's actually a shadowy figure lurking in the background, almost as if it's walking through thin air. Now, I know it might be easy to dismiss this as just a camera glitch or something, but that eerie outline of a person should be enough to send shivers down your spine. The Reddit user mentioned that the front door mysteriously opened, triggering the security footage. Could it be the work of a malevolent spirit? Some speculate that the ghost's energy triggered the alarm and opened the door, creating that ghostly appearance on the video. What's your take, internet detectives? Could this be genuine evidence of another worldly entity crossing into our realm? Or is this just a trick of the light and dust playing with our imagination? The user did some follow-up a year later, reporting no other strange incidents and no local spirit activity. It might be a one-time haunting, but it's still pretty unsettling. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts down below. At number 2, the water watches back. Back in 1924, aboard the SS Watertown, a bizarre and chilling incident occurred. You see, 2 crewmen, James Courtney and Michael Meehan, met a tragic end while cleaning the oil tanker's cargo tank. Gas fumes claimed their lives in an instant, and they were given a burial at sea near the Mexican coast. But the horror didn't end there. You see, the very next day, a crew member claimed to have seen their faces in the waves. A ghastly vision lasting a terrifying 10 seconds. This eerie spectacle repeated over several days. When the ship reached New Orleans, Captain Tracy, driven by the inexplicable events, decided to document it. He purchased a camera, and when those spectral faces emerged once again, he captured the hair-raising image you can now see here. Strangely, once this picture was photographed, all the sightings ceased. A spine-tingling tale of the unexplained phenomena that lingers in the annals of maritime history. And at number 1 is the Madonna of Bachelor's Grove. No, not the Madonna of pop, but a mysterious figure from the afterlife. The Ghost Research Society of America stumbled upon this eerie enigma back in 1991 at the forsaken Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. While Mary Huff took pictures with her infrared camera, everything seemed pretty mundane, but the real shocker came during the development process. In one frame, a woman perched on a tombstone clad in outdated attire, gazing into the abyss. Who was this woman? Well, nobody knows. Was this her own grave she pondered on, or a loved one's? The chilling part is that no one ever saw this woman, yet there she was, captured forever in that still frame, a specter from the beyond. Pretty spooky, right? Now those were pretty spine-tingling, if I do say so myself. As always, if there's a scary real demon that was caught on CCTV cameras that you think I've missed, and I probably missed all kinds, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. This has been AJ Spatola with Most Amazing, and I'll catch you all in another video. Later!
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. This video is about scary moments in history that they don't teach in school. Yep, we found all the best facts from history that they can't teach you about in school for obvious reasons. So you can learn them from us instead. Click the video now to find out more.